take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Good morning, Denver. It's 6 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. And today is going to be an especially unique day, as Bill and I both basically got no sleep last night.
Yes, no sleep at all. None.
And we weren't together. It wasn't
no. This is going to be, that'd be weird. This is... So, okay, you had fits and no sleep last night. I'm sure a listener has as well. What was yours? What was keeping you awake?
Well, my mind just, I was like plugged in. Like I was doing so much show prep, and then you get into the news, and then you're thinking about it and all that stuff. But this was interesting, okay?
Yeah,
so
tell me.
I got John Souther's memoir. You know, John Souther's the former attorney general, former mayor of Colorado Springs. And I was reading his memoir.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Fascinating first few chapters. So he was adopted.
Okay.
His mom never even saw him, his birth mom.
Really?
And she was like a young Catholic girl from Ohio who got pregnant out of wedlock, was shipped to Denver to go take a trip.
Yeah.
And this was during the 50s, right? Early 50s. And so abortion wasn't illegal, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
So they shipped her away. She ended up working for the newspaper here, gave birth, never saw John.
Wow.
And then he was adopted out to a family, had a great experience, but it was like years later with Ancestry.com and all this stuff that he was able to connect with his siblings. And he even reached out to his mom later in life when she was like in her 80s. Still, she had like compartmentalize that entire part of her life off. Her husband never knew about it. Her other 5 kids never knew about it. So I'm having dinner with John next week.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading his memoir to get ready for that dinner. But man, I was just like page turner.
Wow. That's really interesting because in my life, I have someone that's significant that has somewhat of a similar story where she was conceived out of wedlock, but it was based on an affair at the time. And so the father didn't really want anything to do with her per se, but mom did a wonderful job behind the scenes fighting for some child support and some child care, some things like that she needed being. And this is, this would have been late 60s, early 70s time for a woman. And again, she's a single woman. She's very young at the time. And, you know, the only jobs you can get as a single young woman at that time is like secretary. And so she's not able to really raise the child on that per se. So get some support. He ends up that relationship ends. And then there's another wife, I believe, that comes in. It's not until near deathbed that later on the father tells his oldest son, and the oldest son finds out in his mid 40s that he has a sister that is 6 months younger than he is.
Wow.
And so it's a really interesting connection. And this is the weird part about it, is the family, the extended family on that side accepted her. Oh my gosh. I mean, it'll bring me to tears with open arms, because there was this thing where he had 4 sons. And there was this joke that he was always trying to get the daughter. And there was this kind of, and it wasn't like, poking, but it was the idea that they were all, and in fact, in the brother, the father had a brother has sons too. There's no girls.
Wow.
And so there was this idea that where's the girl? And now the family is like, she's here. We had the girl the whole time. So it's this wonderful little family story that was kind of a tongue-in-cheek, he wants a girl because he kept having babies, but the girl was there all the time. And in fact, came very early. It was really cool. And the family's been fantastic with it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool story.
Those are the good stories.
Yeah, it's a really neat story.
It's with Ancestry.com and with all those DNA tests, you can't even really hide from it anymore. So in John Souther's case, again, former Colorado Attorney General, former mayor of Denver or of Colorado Springs, he writes to his mom, his birth mom. His birth mom goes, "I'm sorry, I just can't." And so they never reconciled, never got back together.
Oh man!
But it was like 15 years later on Ancestry.com, he gets a message from his half sister who's like, "So why is Ancestry saying we're connected?" So he respected the mom, the birth mom, never got involved with the family. But then because of all that DNA testing stuff, you can't hide from it anymore.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And then you had
we had fun trivia. Yeah, I'm at it Wednesday
People
nights.
Should know that.
Yeah,
if they want to hang out with Bill,
you want to come out and see me?
Trivia.
Yeah, come out. I'm at Dry Dock at Hampton and Chambers on Wednesdays, and a really fun crowd. Really great. And wonderful bar manager, Todd, but I had to disturb Todd after he had left for the day last night because the Wi-Fi wasn't letting me connect to the big giant overhead projection screen. And we knew the switcher was working just fine. So the signal was getting from the switcher to the screen, but the Wi-Fi connection, and there are two different Wi-Fis, got to go from one Wi-Fi router to another Wi-Fi router into the switcher. And somewhere along the line, stuff was not going well. So I'm running around with the bartender and I'm trying not to pull them away because they got to serve beer. They're not the IT people. So I'm doing as much as I can based on what I know. And then I had to call Todd and I'm like, listen, and so got to come back here. And he graciously came back. We got rolling about a half an hour or so late. And I had to Frankenstein something together, thankfully, that I've done before. I went and grabbed a computer monitor. I just asked him, he's like, "Oh, I've got my laptop. If you can connect to this." I'm like, "You don't have to stay." I'm like, "Let's just go pirate a laptop." So we went back to the office. We yanked the monitor that was there. I'm like, "No one's in the office. We're taking the monitor." Put the monitor down, ran a HDMI cable into it. We're able to mirror a screen. So I was able to let Todd go home. And then we had a little tiny computer monitor in front of me, which is really stupid. But you play the game on your phone. So you don't have to sit there and look at my dumbass the entire time. So it was a lot of fun. And I do a lot of things with the music. And last night, things just lined up. And there were certain songs and certain music that just, the little kid in me just giggles. Like one of the things last night, okay, one of the question was, of these terms, how many it refers to a century? And it's about 4 score, 5 score, 3 score, 6 score. And if you go 4 score and 7 years ago with Lincoln's speech, that's 87 years. 5 score is 100. So it's asking you how much is 100 years, and then it's 5 score. So my weird brain knows that there is a band that has a hit song, kind of a smaller hit, but a hit song called 100 Years. Their name, 5 for Fighting. So I can get 5 and 100 in the same freaking song. Come on.
Your brain just works at a different level.
I did that. And then there was a question about, and this was fun to play, Charlotte's Web, the rat that helps out, Charlotte. Yeah. And it's Templeton. And so it gave me a chance to play Hunger Strike by the band Temple of the Dog. And so again, if you know the band, there's your hint. Yeah, so there are little things like that. That was so much fun.
I've got a line for you from a very popular Wall Street Journal article.
Uh-oh.
We've just about exhausted my interest in this topic. What else have you got?
Yes. Hey, you want to talk about snakes? We can talk snakes. It's breeding season.
we'll get to this in just a second. But one of the most popular articles this last weekend on the Wall Street Journal, "Help, I'm trapped in a boring conversation and can't get out." I think a lot of people connected with that article, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the opening line that this guy actually uses.
Yeah.
"We've just about exhausted my interest in this topic."
Oh my God.
What else have you got? Would you say that to somebody?
No. But it may be better than, there was a conversation I was having with someone, this is a couple of weeks ago. And the person, someone else comes up and joins the conversation. And the person I'm talking to just does a 50-degree turn to the other person. And I'm seeing shoulder and part of the neck. And I'm like, I guess I'm out of this one.
You just got out. Is there a Seinfeld episode
I just
looked at somebody out of
and I stand there for about 5 seconds going, yeah, the body language here is telling me I'm not in this conversation anymore. I'm like, so I just wandered away. I'm like, who cares? Yeah. Oh boy.
We'll get into this and more. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning. When I became a dad, I was so thankful because I could always say, "Oh crap, my kids," and then I was gone.
That's an excuse. It's amazing all the different excuses you can act like you get a phone call.
Oh yes,
right.
yes.
That's when they get into this article.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting.
And again, the one thing, and you're right, Blake. The once you start having kids, there's a wonderful, especially when they're little. You've got this built-in excuse. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't come over tonight. So little one's got a tummy bug.
Right.
Yeah.
And most of the time it was true.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But oh my gosh.
No doubt. Forgive your life or let go of your life.
Yep.
All right. Good morning, guys. 33 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 40s today. Had a little snow and rain, snow on the yard this morning in northern Colorado. Highs in the low 40s. Once again, the 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: former President Trump's criminal trial in New York resumes today with another day of jury selection. The mainstream media in the Big Apple, they just love this drama as they milk this as long as possible during the presidential campaign.
I tell you, that's the worst hush money I ever spent. Usually when you spend hush money, they hush.
Steven Crowder, man, it's the best Trump stuff going right now. All right, President Biden on the campaign trail in Pennsylvania and a bit confused over Rafah, called it something else as he advises Israel, allegedly.
And I made it clear to Israelis, don't move on Haifa. It's just not, anyway, I just, look what we did recently when Israel was attacked.
I don't know where Haifa is, but he said Haifa. Today, Biden expected to receive endorsements from Kennedy family members who don't support RFK, the independent candidate. The Arizona House did not repeal the near total abortion ban on Wednesday, following attempts by Democrats to do so. At the moment, the earliest the ban could be enforced is early June. Things are getting back to normal after a 911 outage last night reported in parts of Nebraska, Nevada, South Dakota, and Texas. No word on what led to the widespread failure. Denver City Council's Finance and Governance Committee has approved $41 million in budget cuts to support the city's ongoing illegal immigrant response. The mayor's office would see the largest percentage of cuts at 9.6%, while Denver's police and fire departments would see the largest cuts in terms of dollar amounts. The measure will be heard in front of the full council on Monday. If approved, the funding will become available by next month. Listener Mark in Telluride says it best.
Perhaps Mike Johnson's slogan could be, imagine a third world city.
Amen to that. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 27 in Castle Rock, 29 in Boulder, 33 in Denver. The Rockies swept by the Phillies Wednesday, but they return to Coors Field tomorrow for a series with Seattle. The Avs close out the regular season tonight as they play host to the Oilers and get ready for the postseason. Reigning world champion, the Denver Nuggets, first round NBA playoffs this Saturday. They tip it off against the Lakers. A thrilling Thursday with Jeff and Billy continues. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
I'm super pumped for tomorrow morning.
Oh, me too.
Brandon Tatum's going to be live in person with us at the Black Eyed Pea in the 7 o'clock hour. You're not going to want to miss this. We're giving away a $50 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea restaurants in the 7, 8, and 9 o'clock hours. So be sure to stick around. We'll give you all the details on how you can win that in just a little bit. So this is one of the more popular articles on the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. I thought it was just kind of funny because I think we've all been in this situation, right? Help, I'm trapped in a boring conversation and can't get out.
Yeah, my family says it all the time.
Soccer's,
Yes.
snake.
Yeah, the amount of soccer talk at
trivia.
times. Yes, that's ridiculous.
This is from the article. A conversation is a little bit like driving down the freeway. There are only certain points where you're allowed to enter or exit without doing considerable damage. There is, in a conversation, research has found that just about 2% of conversations do the two people want to stop talking at the same point. So 98%, we've all been in those situations where, and especially with me in politics, you end up with other people that just kind of unload their frustrations with government with you, or they have this great idea that they want to implement. And you're going to listen to that, or a book that they've just written or something like that. And you say, okay, I got to listen through that. But only 2% of conversations do the two people want to stop talking at the same point and manage to do so. The vast majority of the time, people in a conversation differ on when they want to end it, with one person wishing to stop talking an average of 10 minutes or 68% of the length of the conversation sooner than the other. We need to take lessons from rats. This is the interesting part of it. Yeah. Well, your rats teach us something
exactly.
easy too.
Yes.
They're food.
They're food. They're delicious.
When put in a maze, they typically just hang out, but give them a trigger, heat up the floor, or administer a shock to their feet, and they quickly discover how to get the heck out. Scientists call this escape conditioning. Consider boredom your trigger to make a break for it. Research shows that people would rather self-administer electric shocks than be bored. One reason
I want to be involved in that study, but I want to administer it. I want to watch these bored people shock themselves. I just want that job.
One reason it takes a lot of mental effort to try to stay engaged when we are bored. It's like a dieter holding back from a chocolate cake or a smoker from having a smoke, says a professor of psychology and brain sciences who studies the neutral effects of boredom. So what are the excuses that work? One is, if you're in an adult conversation, offer this time-tested, I'm going to go get a drink. You want to come with me?
Oh, there we go. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Many people said they pretended their spouse or significant other was calling.
Well, there we go.
One couple has a code word to alert each other that they need to be saved. Do you do that with your wife?
Yeah.
Do you have a little code word?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
and
we do too.
The other part is that we have and we've talked about it before, with my oldest son growing up with a brain injury, he was verbal later in life. And so we communicated very, very early on with sign language. And the results were so positive. We did it with all of our kids because there's a window of about 3 to 4 months with young kids where they are completely and totally able to understand language, but they can't speak. And so they can communicate with you, but they can't vocalize it. And so you've got this window of understanding with the kids that you can communicate that's fascinating. And so we leaned into it, and we still use signs. There's still signs that we use when we're in groups and things like that, so we can communicate back and forth as far as all done, more, what do you want to do, going to the bathroom, drinking, eating. We can have conversations across the room to let you know. Yeah, but it's kind of cool. Yeah, I did, however, get my oldest son in trouble. I think it was first grade or second grade. Because I was picking him up after school, but I knew I had to stand outside his classroom, but I could see into the window and I could see him, and he and I were talking in sign language back and forth about his day. And then he got in trouble with the teacher, and I'm like, I'm sorry. She goes, I didn't know what he was doing. I'm like, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. I'll stay outside of the view of the window so he can't see me. But yeah.
Others said they try to pass the long-winded person off on somebody else.
Oh, I thought it was just going to be pass wind. Like, excuse me. Sorry, I got to go. That's a good way to end it.
A woman in her 80s says she waits for the person who is rattling on to take a breath and then starts talking about whatever she wants. Someone is going to be boring. I'd rather it was me, she said.
I thought it was going to be, she was going to wait for them to take a breath and then fake a heart attack. It was going to be more of an immediate get out. Yeah.
I appreciated this about the article where they say, look, even we understand getting out of boring conversation is important, but they use this example. A few years ago, Greg was, but there's an importance to listening. A few years ago, Greg was waiting for a flight when the man sitting next to him struck up a conversation. Reed was catching up on work email and wanted to continue, but he decided to listen to the man talk about his kids, his job, and his work routine. When it came time to board the flight, Reed says that the man shook his head and said, "Thank you. That was wonderful. I haven't enjoyed a conversation like this since my wife recently passed away. I'm glad I've listened," said Reed, 59, a data privacy consultant from Portland, Maine. You never know what the other person's going through. So yeah, sometimes you want to get out of it, but important to remember active listening as well. Make a game of it. Best way to is
I wasn't paying attention. Was saying something? I missed last.
This is the best conversation I've had since.
Yeah, missed it. Go ahead. I'm an idiot.
That was good, Bill. That was funny.
Thank you.
Make a game of it. The best way to escape a boring conversation is to turn it into a better one. Challenge yourself to make the chat interesting. Give yourself bonus points for each thing you discover that you and your other person have in common.
Make it a game. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or see if you can get them to reveal some sort of deep, dark secret. That's when you level up and you get the bonus.
Yes.
And you're the boss. You're on boss level. My wife has that issue. People, for whatever reason, want to tell her their deepest, darkest secret way too early in the relationship. It's like really early up. They're like, "Well, can I talk to you about my abuse now?" You're like, "Hold on, we're just having lunch here." Yeah. Oh man.
If all else fails, it's okay to flee. Try this. I'm afraid I have to be leaving in the next few minutes, but I want to hear the end of your story before I go.
I still say it's flatulence. You can just excuse yourself. I got a tummy thing. Either that or go with the smoke bomb like Batman, because that's much more dramatic.
I still love that opening line that we talked about. If you're bold enough to be able to say, "We've just about exhausted my interest in this topic. What else have you got?" Yeah,
I have one that I guess would say it's a bit more acerbic. It doesn't really go over as well, but it does end the conversation immediately. My phrase is, "I'm sorry, I think you've mistaken me for someone who cares." That ends the conversation really quickly.
The conversation very
It doesn't
quickly.
make me a lot of friends, but it does end the conversations. Yeah, it does help.
Avoiding conversation is easy. I just turn off the app.
I think they're talking about the show. That's not good. I'm taking that personally.
Let's go to Dwayne and Divide. Good morning, Dwayne. You're on the Jeff and Bill
Good morning.
Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Dwayne?
He's bored.
Dwayne,
Not listening anymore. Yeah,
we've
bored.
just about exhausted my interest in
Yes,
this topic.
we have.
What else have you got?
I don't know.
I'm
gonna talk to him off air real
I
quick.
appreciate the kind of old regal sounding of that. We've just about exhausted my interest in this topic. What else have you got? A common problem that we all face getting out of a boring conversation. There was a good article in the Wall Street Journal. You
Okay, I was
should
trying
check it out.
Dwayne
Did we get
again.
Dwayne back?
I think so. I pushed
Hello?
some other buttons.
Good
Hey,
morning, Dwayne.
I pushed some different buttons. That may
Were
work.
you,
There
were
we
you
go.
tired of a conversation?
I think he was asleep.
No. Unfortunately, whatever it was in the stratosphere last night, I sat there and had about 3 minutes sleep.
Yeah.
Us
Brand new
too.
sheets.
What was going on?
I said, I don't know. I have no clue. You were busy, Bill. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like brand new sheets. I did the comforters. I mean, all of it. I mean, the only thing I didn't do yesterday was have, menopausal cramps. I was just so female doing everything. But I couldn't find a way to sleep. And my problem is I was talking to my therapist, and every morning I listen to you guys for a few minutes, and it's like, as I tell them, every morning I got these two guys in bed with me that I can't sit there and seem to argue with enough. And I finally had to reveal that I listen to you guys. So
That's not
that's how
good.
my last conversation started.
That's not good. Your
So-
therapist's going to charge you more. They're going to say you're doing this to yourself. This is not good.
Well, no, not really. He doesn't really seem to pay that much attention. I mean, when I walk into the office,
Yeah.
he tells the receptionist, "I'll take all my calls." So I'm always like,
Oh, that's
"It's
great. Now,
never a good."
Dwayne, based on the sleep thing, it's Jeff and I were struggling with it as well. What are your go-tos? And then we'll talk conversations, how you can extricate yourself from a boring conversation like this one. But again, what do you do? Do you have any routines, any tips when you're trying to fight and you just can't fall asleep? What do you go to?
Well, the falling asleep part's easy. Either I'm in or I'm out. There's a couple of pressure points on your wrist that you can do. One just below your pinky.
Yeah.
Right there at the wrist. You can press that for about a minute and a half. That helps. And then over on the thumb. But if that doesn't work for me, I just kind of, I don't touch the electronics because then I know I'm screwed.
Yeah.
So usually I just kind of toss and turn, and then it's like, well, let's try this comforter. No, let's get up and try this pillow. No, The blanket's too much. Let's just try the sheet. And pretty soon after a while, it's just like, put a dang pair of sweatpants on, and that's it. Just stay there and just let it go.
Yeah, that fighting of trying to find the temperature, the body. And my wife talks about those pressure points as well, but she doesn't talk about the one on the wrist. She keeps telling me the pressure point doesn't have to lay quietly on the bed, and then she puts the pillow over my head and holds for a while.
Well, there is that one.
I don't trust that one. She's got this evil glint in her eye, and I'm not sure I trust that one.
Just make sure you turn your head to the left so you can still breathe.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate you watching out for me. Thank you.
Well, because I've been with ladies in my lifetime where all of a sudden it's like, honey, why is there an axe in the headboard?
Yeah.
What's wrong? Or I get the things where it's like, I can't deal with this anymore. It's over. It doesn't work for me. And I open up the refrigerator door. It's like, root beer's cold. I don't know what she's talking about.
So boring conversations. It's you've been out there socializing. How do you get yourself out of those boring conversations, and how difficult is it for you?
The strangest thing is that some of the people you think would be interesting are the most dull. I mean, they're the kind of people that make you say, why am I wanting to watch paint dry? Or worse, you see, you listen to them and you envision them on the beach like a whale going, don't touch it. The dullness will wear off. So most of the time I try and keep something very smooth and quick. And if I find a conversation interesting, I'll keep talking. If not, I've always got some strange, weird joke to pop up and throw into place. So that's always my best way, is to make them laugh and sit there and say, this has really been a lot of fun, but I must go, irritate somebody else. And then I move along.
Good. Oh, that's a good one. So you're in a way, you're actually endorsing my flatulence suggestions from earlier, but you think that maybe I could go with the joke, more the idea of, hey, I've got an idea, pull my finger. We go that. Then I can finish with a joke and finish strong. What do you think?
There is that option, as always, to sit there and try that.
Yes.
But what I hate is I'll be talking with someone, and then all of a sudden I feel like I'm part of some BBC programming where it's like, Father Dwayne, and they start just telling me all their sins and everything else, and I'm like, really?
Yeah,
that's fascinating. I really had no idea that you were like, that and everything else. And then I'm like, I'm stuck with this. The thing about Mayor Southers, I'm also an adopted man. I'm from Canada. Yes.
Wow.
And I was brought to this country and allowed to become an American citizen and do my trek through everything.
Oh, so you're one of those illegals across the border. I see how this is. Yeah.
Oh, I can show you the checks how much illegal I was.
Yeah, I bet. Yes, I understand. I'm just teasing you, my friend, because I can.
Because the adoption back in the 60s was $3,000.
Wow.
Okay, so that was $3,000 money, which you can kind of figure out how much it is now.
Yeah. That's big money.
And then the adoption and everything else to go, and then citizenship.
Now, Did you? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Dwayne, did you ever connect with your birth parents?
Well, this is what I'm talking about. A friend of mine, she's been clamoring for me to get that because she's Canadian. I'm like, honey, it's big country. And I said, you were in Toronto. I was in Newfoundland, and I don't think we're going to be connected. But somebody did reach out to me.
No way.
Yesterday, and I don't know, maybe that was part of my non-sleeping situation.
Oh wow.
Because I don't know whether to go, because it's not only him, apparently there's 18 others.
Whoa.
Well, you may want to reach out, because it may be an email from that Nigerian prince who has all the lottery winnings, and he just needs you to give him a little money so he can get out of the country. Don't give up on that option.
I got $50 out of him.
Hey,
I got
nice.
$50 out of one of those guys, because I said, really? I need $50 to open up the account, and then I can send you some money.
Oh, so
the
smart.
guy sent it to me. I haven't sent it to my PayPal, and I kept it. So.
Oh, no way. I'm stealing that idea. That's a great idea.
I did. Oh yeah, that's what I did. My father, my biological chemical creator there, he was a Marine pilot.
Wow.
So I have a feeling that the reason I've got 18 others besides my person who contacted me is that it was kind of like, sailor at every port, pilot with every airport. So it's just kind of one of those things.
He had a lot of people in his drop zone.
In John's memoir, he talks about just he lived a good life. He had a great adoptive parents and really had no desire to complicate his life by finding his birth parents. But as he got a little bit older, knowing family history, knowing health history became kind of important for him. And that's why he's willing to go down this road. Is that the same for you?
I had two wonderful parents. I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever. Canada, it's an open adoption. I found out I could have gotten the name, but my mother was a teacher and my bio father was a U.S. Marine pilot. So if I wanted to dig a little bit further, I would. But the friend of mine, I don't know why her fascination with my background means anything, but she's like, I have their names, and your mother is still alive. And I'm like, what am I going to talk to an 85-year-old woman about at this point? Hey,
Yeah.
thank you so much for putting me on the table and running off. Somebody picked me up on the discount rack and brought me along. I mean, I spent 18 months in an orphanage. So,
Really?
you know,
Wow,
oh yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, do you have any problem with touch or anybody, you know, talking to you? No, none whatsoever. That's why I see a therapist and tell them I have 2 guys I wake up with every morning.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, I understand that would be a really difficult conversation because of the 18 months in the orphanage. Just from where I'm sitting, if it was something where she had prearranged and found the family and she's like, this family's going to take care of you, but she didn't. It was just good luck. And at the time in which, and I can feel that emotionally for me, it would be tough because that is the time in which you need your parents the most, when you are the most vulnerable. And for them to say, no, I'm going to give you up for whatever those reasons are, that's got to be really difficult.
Well, the Canadian medical community did not touch children in the orphanages.
Wow.
Because that was to
Well,
sit
that's
there and make
messed
sure
up.
there wouldn't be any attachment. So
Oh,
I mean,
that is so messed up.
I mean, you know, there were those days where when I was all broken and I had nothing but time to read.
Yeah.
And I was reading some of this going, well, that explains why I want to have these kind of situations where it's like, I love you, I don't love you. And it was like, it's more than just, you know, peeling the fingers off of somebody on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it just, you know, a lot of it went there. But as now that I'm a father, you know, in my 60s to a young man,
Yeah.
I find myself trying to make sure that we do everything. And the one thing I do love about my child is that I hear this all the time: hug, kiss.
Oh,
So,
yes.
you know, at least 10, 15 times a night anyway, where we're watching TV. I get that. And he loves going to school and he's getting ready now. And he's like, should I brush my teeth? I said, I can still see the waffle. So it's always the most important thing to get that out of the teeth.
That is
That's
wonderful.
cool.
That is really cool. I appreciate that, Dwayne. I like the fact that it's almost like you've been able to, as far as the relationship, close the circle. That you've been able to give this experience to your son that you didn't have because you recognize it. And most people will repeat the bad behavior that they experienced as a child, and you've broken the circle. You've broken the cycle. I got a lot of respect for you. I enjoy when he calls.
Dwayne, appreciate the
Yeah, have a
call.
great
Thanks
day.
for spending your morning with 2 dudes in your bed.
I know. But hey, but you can always tell a therapist we're dressed, unlike you, which makes the conversation really weird.
Your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. The Empower Home team provides exceptional service, invaluable advice, and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're leaving money on the table by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Gay and her experts get their clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team today. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. When we come back, fascinating. Do you know how many coins Americans throw away a year?
No.
$68 million worth, and a company has found a way to try to go get that.
Ooh,
So we'll
I'm
fill you in
interested.
on that when we come back. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. World leaders are urging Iran to exercise restraint amid fears that it will attack Israel. The Biden administration has warned that Iran could retaliate for the bombing of a diplomatic compound in Damascus, which killed senior figures of the Iranian military. Ishan Gerg reports from Brussels.
The German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has urged, quote, maximum restraint in her talks with her Iranian counterpart. Russia and the UK too have warned Iran. The British Foreign Secretary says the potential for miscalculation in the Middle East could lead to further violence. Since Hamas's October 7th attacks on Israel, there have been concerns over other states getting involved. Iran-backed Houthi rebels have pledged support for Palestinians and have been disrupting shipping in the Red Sea. And now, with Iran vowing retaliation, there are concerns about a wider conflict in the region.
European officials are meeting to discuss a proposal on using profits from frozen Russian assets to buy weapons for Ukraine. It comes after the US suggested raising debts and securing them against Russian assets. There are deep divisions in the West over how best to help support Ukraine in the longer term, with some European Union members worried about setting a precedent that leads investors to fear financial markets aren't secure. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Got a great show for you today on the Jeff and Bill show. In the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to get into how big is this Gaza issue dividing up Democrats? Is this going to play a big enough role in this election? 1-2% even? Could that make a difference for Joe Biden? We'll cover the Colombia president. She was in front of Congress yesterday. She got a bit of a grilling on anti-Semitism on college campuses. 8 a.m., George Brockler is going to join us. The 25th anniversary of Columbine's coming up on April 20th. So that's this Saturday. George will give us kind of some reflections on his time. If you remember, he prosecuted the two men that sold weapons to the shooters. So check in with George at 8 o'clock. And then 9 a.m., friend of the program, Erin Lee from that movie Art Club movie about how her daughter went to a just kind of a basic art club gathering at her middle school and ended up kind of coming back really questioning her own gender identity and things like that. They did a documentary movie. They tried to screen it at the University of Denver a few days ago. A bunch of protesters showed up, were shouting at them, all that stuff. We'll get some information from Erin Lee, and then all the news and coverage that you need to know to start your day. It's going to be a very busy day. We're back in court in Manhattan. Day off yesterday from the Trump hush money trials. So we'll be watching that. So we'll keep you up to date on all that. You're not going to want to miss it. News at the top of the hour with Blake Olson. Found this pretty interesting. Yeah. Americans throw away up to $68 million in coins a year. Wow. Here's where it all ends up. How do you think we throw that money away? What do you think happens there, Blake?
My guess would be either emptying out, the pockets at the end of the day, as far as your, that, or just accumulating it. Or maybe it's like stuck in the bottom of women's purses. I have no idea.
We vacuum it up out of cars.
Is that
and then stuff like that, and we don't really chase it down, right? Like if you lost $100 bill, you go look for it. If you lost $20, you would. But a quarter, a penny, I'm not going to waste my time going after that. What they have calculated is that the amount of money that ends up in dumps is $68 million. And so companies are now starting to use processes to kind of burn the trash to identify and see if they can maintain the metal and be able to go and collect it.
It's a fire assay system is what they're doing. Is they're taking the soil and they're combining it with some chemicals, and then you burn it down and then you run it through some high heat, and then you end up with basically it's a little glass bead, and the glass will hold on to the metals inside, and then you can analyze the bead and it'll tell you what the metals are in the soil. I worked in a fire assay lab for a little while.
Did you?
Yeah. So I get to do this. Yeah. I got to run things in the kiln and everything else. So yeah, I've done this thing looking for I used it for mines. I did it it was a company that worked with mining. And so what we do is we take the soil and we try to figure out if the vein, if it should continue going this direction. Yeah. That's what we did. Yeah.
So the U.S. Mint spends $707 million a year making coins. It costs the government 3 times more per penny to make the penny.
We shouldn't be making pennies. Pennies are stupid.
Right. Should we be done with coins? You think we're at a point where we should just be done with coins?
I think we're close to it. I don't think yet. I would immediately get rid of the penny, only because then it forces all of us to stop pricing things at $3.99 and $4.99. It ends the 99 thing. Gimmick. Yes, it is. But it would force us to stop that crap. So I would be totally in favor of that one. I can see a space for dimes, nickels, quarters, only because unless we want to go to full dollar amount values, that's the difficulty. Is if we go away and we do away with coins, then how do you get any sort of a change? Everything has to be round numbers. And the way that we structure our tax system, we're going to end up with coins. We're going to end up with a remainder. So unless we want to start rolling our taxes into the prices that we see and the little sticker thingies on the stores, if we want to do that, which would really help. That would really, really help so many people. But I don't think we're there yet. So what do you think? I mean, what do you do with your coins, and do you keep them? What do you do?
I don't. I used to collect pennies when I was little, but I don't. I don't. We have
That's
no
before I
coins
discovered
around.
girls. Right. Like, oh, this is stupid.
Exactly. Here's the amount of unclaimed money left at airports: $1 million a year.
No,
and change is left at airports.
Okay, it's the TSA people got to be on that, and it's just the idea of that's tips, people. That's tips. You could just take that, and that could be come on.
So this company that's burning the trash, getting to the coins, they have collected $10 million in coins.
Jeez.
But only $6 million of it has been good enough to use in conditions. So
So I wonder if they do the other stuff. And we have there's in each one of the cars there's an area where you keep change, and so sometimes one of my kids seems to collect what looks almost $25 at times in change, just a big thing. And she has a little sign above that there that says money. So, but they use it every once in a while, and I see the stuff change out. The other thing that we do is it's a behavior correction device for our dog. And what we do is I've got a little mason jar and it has a lid on the top. And so I take extra change and I put it in there. And then when she's not paying attention or being naughty, you shake it. And it immediately is a behavior corrector because it's loud, it's kind of sharp, and we've done that since she was a little tiny puppy. So immediately it's a behavior corrector. So even where she's like barking at someone, you can grab it and shake, and go, shh, quiet. And so she just sits there and is mad at us for a while.
Do you think so? I mean, everything's card based right now. Everything's digital based.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Even vending machines are digital based, and you pay with a credit card.
Yeah.
I pretty much don't walk around with any cash. Sorry, potential robbers. There's like literally, I will show you right now. My wallet, Bill.
Yeah. None.
Has absolutely zero cash in it right now.
Okay, here. Okay, it's for
so. I mean, if we're gonna go on a trip and I know I need to tip guys, that's about the only time I get cash.
See, I've got this. I've got mine, and I do have some monies today. I do. I always carry just a tiny little bit of cash. One, because, and your kids are not old enough yet for this to go, Dad, I need the money. And so I always have to have something that, because they're so expensive.
Wasn't that Married with Children where he was sitting there?
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of the same thing. So I've always got to have that. And then also, it's stupid superstition. But years ago, someone gave me a paper that has the number 8 on it and has some Chinese symbols. And the thing is it's a lucky number in China. And so if you carry that in your pocket, in your wallet, you're always supposed to have money with you, that it just kind of somehow is there. It's a superstition. It's silly, but it's just a reminder. For me, I use it as a reminder that always have just a little bit of cash just in case. Not a lot. Right now, I think I've got $15.
But do you think that is turning too much power over to the government and to the banks to regulate? If all of your money is digital, I'd love to we're up against a break here, but let's because we gotta get to You Choose the News. But I'd love to hear from people. I basically live in a cashless world already.
Yeah, are we cashless? Yeah, and how does that impact digital currency and Bitcoin?
And is it a big threat? Yeah, you conservatives out there.
And if you're all digital with your card, that means the government and the bank can track everything you buy.
Everything.
Yeah.
All right. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's do You Choose the News.
Yes,
Bill
it is that
Thorpe.
time of the morning for everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. It's something we call You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find these ridiculous stories and given them, well, it's honestly really stupid headlines. Well, it's fake radio news game. Why? Because, well, it's silly, it's fun, and the people in charge have no idea we're doing it. So again, they wake up in about 7 minutes. Got to make this one quick. Blake Olson joining us from the news department. Alrighty, gentlemen, here are your stories this morning. Headline number 1, Hollywood smells a sequel. Headline number 2, read the small print. Headline number 3, all or nothing purchases, just like those loot boxes. And headline number 4, when advertising works way too well.
Let's do Hollywood sequel.
Yes, Hollywood is smelling a sequel on this one. We are traveling to Brazil, specifically meeting Erica de Souza Vieira. Recently, she took a starring role in what is being called somewhat of a illegal attempt to get a hold of some cash. See, Erica wheeled her uncle into the bank recently and tried to have her withdraw right around $3,200. Yes, and unfortunately, uncle had passed away a couple hours previously. So she shows up at the bank with the dead uncle and is saying, no, he's just fine. He's just a little lethargic, even putting the pen into the deceased man's hand to try to get him to sign a check. People there noticed something was a little bit awry with said uncle and called the police. The viral footage is out there. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the lawyer always has an answer and says, no. Uncle was alive when they arrived. He just died while they were there.
And prove it.
Yes, exactly.
Prove that he died.
Yes. All righty.
Wow.
Jeff, second choice this morning. Read the small print, all or nothing purchase like the loot boxes or when advertising works too well.
Let's do advertising working too well.
When does advertising work too well? Well, that's a lesson being learned by Red Lobster. Red Lobster has shuttered 8 locations in 2023, and they're reporting a $22 million loss for the year. They're saying they're going to have to go into bankruptcy filing, restructure the debts because, yes, the landscape has changed. Things are very difficult out there. People want more money to work in. Oh, yeah, those all-you-can-eat promotions really screwed us, too. You know that $20 Ultimate Endless Shrimp deal? Ended up costing the company $11 million in the third quarter alone. Eventually, they raised the cost to $25. It didn't help. They're not going to recoup it. So that all you can eat cost them $11 million and put them in the tank. So it is your fault for eating too much of the shrimp that Red Lobster may go away. It's all your fault. Okay. Blake Olson from the news department. Your choice this morning. Read the small print or all or nothing purchase like the loot boxes.
All these readers, they're bothering me, Billy. Let's go read the small print.
Yes, you need to read the small print. That's especially what a Florida man has learned recently. He's got to check the small print when he is traveling internationally. Recently, he took a wonderful vacation to Switzerland and he wanted to share all his adventures. He sent photos, messages to his friends and family back home to update their trip. And then when he arrived back home, he had a special present in his mailbox from T-Mobile. It was a bill of over $143,000 for his cell phone charges while in Switzerland. Using data internationally costs you more than just an arm and a leg, costs you all of the appendages. He had no idea. It is in his agreement, but he said he didn't realize how much data he was using. He thought he would just turn on the phone for a little bit of time, but it doesn't work that way, and they charge you so much, $143,000 plus. Luckily, he did. Now, it was only 9.5 gigabytes of data is what he used. Luckily, he had the foresight to call T-Mobile beforehand and ask about the charges internationally. They had said, no, sir, you are fine. Everything should be okay. Don't worry about it. Because of that previous conversation, T-Mobile has wiped away the bill.
No way.
Yeah, if he had not called them, they would have said, no, we'd hold you to it. But they said, yes, you called, and our information that we gave you was incorrect. So you went forward based on false information. It's all good. We're good, sir. So, yeah. So, again,
that's awesome.
Very rarely does customer service actually work in favor of the customer.
Yeah, and very rarely do they speak English.
That is Blake Olson from the news department. That is the end of You Choose the News. He'll be back in a second. As always, I'm the giant loser. Jeff is our big winner today, and RollTheMountShelves.com does not want to sponsor this, but they are wonderful. They'll come to your house and organize your kitchen, closets, bath. RollTheMountShelves.com.
No recent Democrat president has faced such fierce internal conflict over Gaza. We'll get to it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe. We're responding to all your text messages. 7127, we're discussing just how big into conspiracy theories we are.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because if we, in the 7 o'clock hour or 6 o'clock hour, we were discussing becoming a cashless society, and then what could the government do with credit, social credit scores, like they do in China, where if you say bad things about the government, they all of a sudden give you a bad credit score, and then you can't open doors and stuff like that.
The weird part is we kind of we do that ourselves already. I mean, we are self-selecting that already. We already sit there and based on someone's politics or views on things, we ostracize them or bring them into the group, and so we're already there ourselves.
It's most of the next broadcast on Channel 9.
Yes, it is. Yes,
ostracizing
very
others.
True. Very true.
Shame. You just tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. Neither Bill and I got much sleep last night, so you're in for a real treat.
Yeah, this is going to be a surprise.
It's going to be a great day in Denver, Colorado. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So if you're like the two of us, grab your fifth cup of coffee and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Fascinating article, and then we'll get to the news in just a second. Gaza is dividing Democrats from the Atlantic. No recent Democratic president has faced such fierce internal conflict over a foreign policy issue. So they go back and compare what Joe Biden's had to deal with regards to Gaza and Israel to anything that Barack Obama had to deal with internally with his party, Bill Clinton. They kind of look at what Hillary Clinton had to face when she voted for the Iraq war and how that contributed to her loss against Barack Obama. But you really have to go back to LBJ and Vietnam to get a sense of the internal discord that the Democrat Party has to deal with on this. Think about what happened just in the last 2 days. You had protests shut down the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine protests taking place there. Yesterday, in the president's office of Google, for 8 hours, Google employees shut down the president's office of Google. By the way, they all got fired for doing this, and rightfully so. But this is not just kind of a side little thing within the Democrat Party. If Joe Biden can't get control of this, according to this article in the Atlantic in the next 3 months or so, these are close elections. 1%, 2% stay home in a place like Michigan as a protest vote.
Yep. And that's going to be a really, really interesting conversation internally inside the Democrats, because the question is going to be, okay, you're mad at the Biden administration and you want them to change things and you want them to push harder against Israel and how they're prosecuting the war. And so if you stay home, it's the idea of the same thing you have with Donald Trump. If you decide just not to vote for Donald Trump, does that end up being a net positive for Biden? And that's going to be the conversation, the same conversations that Republicans are having with their friends and family members, same conversation the Democrats are going to have, that you may be this mad, but if you decide not to vote, are you going to be happier with the alternative? Is that going to make it better? How much more likely is your position going to be met with the alternative? Same conversations Republicans have been having with their friends and family.
Issues.
Yep, exactly.
On the pro-life issues.
Yep.
So we'll get into this and more. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, guys. 33 and cloudy in Denver. Some snow early on the lawns up and down the Front Range. Expecting highs in the 40s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: Denver City Council's Finance and Governance Committee has approved $41 million in budget cuts to support the city's ongoing illegal immigrant response. The mayor's office would see the largest percentage of cuts at 9.6%, while Denver's police and fire departments would see the largest cuts in terms of cash money dollar amounts. The measure will be heard in front of the full council on Monday. If approved, the funding will become available by next month. Listener Mark in Telluride says it best.
Perhaps Mike Johnson's slogan could be, imagine a third world city.
No doubt. 45-year-old Salim Martinez has been arrested and charged in connection with a murder last year in Westminster. Officers found the body of 48-year-old Nicole Meager at a home on Sheridan in October. Authorities determined her death a homicide. Former President Trump's criminal trial in New York resumes today with another day of jury selection, and the mainstream media, they're having a blast in the Big Apple as the drama continues, and they try to milk this as long as possible during the presidential campaign. Today, President Biden expected to receive endorsements from Kennedy family members who don't support RFK, the independent candidate. President Biden telling his tall tales again. Yes, his family served in World War II, no doubt, and his uncle Bosie, a hero, he sacrificed for the country, but there's no proof that Alfred Packard influenced natives in New Guinea.
And he became an Army Air Corps before the Air Force came along. He flew those single-engine planes as reconnaissance over war zones. He got shot down in New Guinea, and they never found the body because there were a lot of cannibals for real in that part of New Guinea.
Man, they ate him.
Don't we have an Alfred Packer?
Yes.
Here in Colorado.
Yes.
Speaking of cannibals.
Legend. No doubt. That's funny. Great minds think alike. Yeah. I don't know if he went down there and influenced all of them and that culture. I have no idea, but they have never proven it. And speaking of long conversations trying to get out of, right? Jeez.
Did you watch his reception when he walked into the gas station? Everyone's kind of just like,
I did.
And then I posted this on Twitter yesterday. Harlem's response to Donald Trump.
Right.
Did you see those videos yet?
That was impressive.
Name me another Republican that gets people in Harlem up, standing, cheering. And I'm looking at video now of him heading to his court trial right now, and the motorcade going by and people cheering. It's
impromptu.
Wow.
Also, yeah, they're not scheduling. A lot of these are not scheduling, and I mean,
well, I'm curious about the bodega, whether or not that one was scheduled or not. I don't know enough because I found out the Chick-fil-A one that we saw with the students and stuff, that was all pre-planned. I found that.
Yeah, kind of. I noticed a few of them.
Yeah, in fact, the woman that says, "Hey, I want a hug, give me a hug." She is a Republican activist and motivator and does some stuff on the campus in college. And she did an interview afterwards saying, no, I knew he was coming and he was going to be traveling through this area. And we organized the event for him to be at Chick-fil-A, and we contacted the campaign and had the campaign stop there. Yeah. And she had organized the students in the crowd there. So I'm not saying that is the same thing in the bodega. I'm just curious. And if the Trump campaign planned it, the Biden campaign needs to pay attention. Do that. Do that thing.
Absolutely.
Steal it. Really,
guys. It didn't look like it. And, I still,
I'm just curious.
It doesn't hurt their cause at all. It's fascinating.
No, and you've got a great point about them lining the streets and cheering and stuff like that. So, and that is much more impromptu because that's hard to get. Who's going to organize, that type of parade attendance this early in the morning?
They're not going to do it for Biden.
No, not at all.
Not even in New York.
No way.
Things are getting back to normal after.
Well, not normal now. Well, this would be normal, though. Blake cuts out. This is totally normal. Yeah. Actually, this is the thing. We don't really want to tell everybody. Blake's actually AI part of the day. And it's glitching right now. The AI we didn't program it properly. And Too many things I put in there about snakes. I think that's the problem. But yeah, see, Robot Blake is still, and we'll check in here with him.
911. How perfect!
There you are. That was perfect, my friend.
Maybe at 7:08, I should always read that story.
Yes, you should. That was fantastic.
So there was an outage last night reported in Nebraska, Nevada, South Dakota, and Texas. No word on what led to the failure. All right, it's 29 in Parker, 30 in Westminster, and 33 in Denver.
Stott is under it. He says he's got it, and he does! And it's their first sweep of the 2024 season.
The Rockies swept by the Phillies Wednesday, but they return to Coors Field tomorrow for a series with Seattle. The Avs close out the regular season tonight as they get ready for the playoffs. They take on the Oilers tonight, and reigning world champion the Denver Nuggets, first round NBA playoffs, they tip off on Saturday against the Lakers, a pep rally, on Wednesday.
We're getting the repeat, no doubt.
All right, the fans all ready for that. Let's keep it safe in the celebration if they win the world championship. A thrilling Thursday with Jeff and Bill continues. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, some breaking news coming through here. Protesters are swarming the Columbia University campus as frustration grows over the president's comments yesterday in Congress. The protests come after the president of the Ivy League school testified before a House committee. The hearing was designed to gauge anti-Semitism on her campus. As darkness fell on campus Wednesday evening, pro-Palestinian students rallied and chanted. They vowed to stay until Columbia divested from Israel-related businesses. These students set up tents over the south lawn of the school's quad. It sounds like the city of Denver. The school has asked protesters to pick up their tents and leave the lawn. 4 people were arrested at the protests, including a 14-year-old who was later released to her parents or his parents. There were also dozens of students and faculty gathered at the school to support Israel. Meanwhile, in Washington, lawmakers examine Columbia's response to anti-Semitism on campus. Listen to the grilling the president of Columbia faced yesterday in Congress.
Attacked Professor Joseph Mossad, and I only single him out amongst numerous others that I could single out because he particularly is a tenured professor and chairs the School of Arts and Sciences Academic Review Committee. He wrote in an article praising, and I quote him, "the innovative Palestinian resistance," end quote, for attacking Israel and glorifying Hamas's slaughter of nearly 1,200 Jews as, and I quote again, "awesome, astonishing, astounding, and incredible." President Shafiq, you recently said, and I quote, "It is absolutely unacceptable for any member of the Columbia community to promote the use of terror and violence," end quote. Do you condemn Professor Mossad's statement, and has he faced any consequences for it?
Congressman, I do condemn his statement. I am appalled by what he said.
Any consequences?
He has been spoken to.
Spoken to?
And I think you could.
So support of terrorism is acceptable if you're a Columbia professor?
Not at all. And I should say.
He's been spoken to?
I didn't get to fit.
I have your answer.
I just want to confirm that when faculty behave in any discriminatory fashion at Columbia.
You talk to them.
There are consequences. No, we take them out of the classroom if necessary.
Is he out of the classroom?
From leadership posts if necessary. We allow students to leave those classes if they feel at all uncomfortable.
Is he out of the classroom?
he is I believe, to answer your question, he is no longer chair of that committee and does not have a leadership role.
But not in the classroom.
That's the president of Columbia University on Capitol Hill yesterday getting grilled. If you remember, it was about 3 or 4 months ago that the presidents of other universities, Harvard, MIT, Pitt, were up on Capitol Hill. And as a result of their testimonies, a few of them resigned. The president of Harvard, most famously, had to resign her spot because of essentially their inability to address anti-Semitism that's growing on their campus. This is interesting and important because this growing divide, particularly among Democrats, could be not only threatening to the presidency of Joe Biden and his future reelection efforts, but I mean, this really goes to show the failure of modern higher education. That if you can't be clear on this issue, and here's where this is where I get a little passionate on this, Bill.
Yeah.
I go back to William F. Buckley's book, God and Man at Yale. It's a very famous book published in the 60s about how Yale was shifting. So Yale was founded as kind of a conservative alternative to Harvard. A lot of people don't know this.
Yeah.
And in the 40s and 50s, it started to shift. And then William F. Buckley, a recent graduate of Yale in the 60s, published God and Man at Yale about how this notion of academic freedom was poisoning higher education. Mm-hmm. It became this Trojan horse to basically promote any idea that you want. That universities were no longer about teaching truth, no longer about instilling character values into students and preparing them to be the leaders of our community, that they became, under the guise of academic freedom, basically kind of leftist indoctrination camps. And you do that for 30 or 40 years, and you get what colleges are today, where you go, are they really training them to become the professionals we need to guide this country, or are they becoming leftist activists? And when you have Fox News breaking in here about all these protests taking place at Columbia University over what should be very clear. The attacks on October 7th were horrible terrorist attacks, and we should stand with Israel going after the terrorists. The fact that universities can't even guide their students in this way is incredibly disheartening.
Yeah. The thing that I'm looking at here is the function of free speech.
Yeah.
And that free speech is there not to cover what you and I agree with,
right,
but the stuff that we disagree with the most. That it is supposed to be there to protect the individual saying something that we disapprove of with every fiber of our being. And this, again, as long as it is just speech, while uncomfortable, I would defend it. And because they should be allowed to express how they feel. However, some of these actions have gotten into what I would say would be bullying. Some of them have become very physical. Some have become confrontations and I will go back to, you remember Eric Sandman, the protester for abortion rights out in front of, or not, for pro-life, out in front of the Capitol. Mm-hmm. And then he was confronted by a Native American and they got in the face and then he filed some lawsuits. And that was, again, a free speech issue because you had two people that disagreed on either side and they got into each other's faces and it became an intimidation factor. At that point, I think you're crossing over the line of free speech. And I believe some of these protesters absolutely have. But if we really believe in free speech, I think that we should defend even the speech that we disagree with the most. And in this case, that would be one of them for me.
What's the role of a university, though, in teaching truth?
Now, this is a stupid question, but the idea of, and I don't want to use it this way, but the idea of whose truth, and what I mean by truth,
right,
is some of these protesters have family members or friends that are Palestinians,
right,
and they have, from their perspective, experienced abuse from the Israeli government. Now, some, because the Palestinian Authority has been self-inflicted because of them not being able to work with the Israeli government. But on par, if we judge some of the things that the Israelis have done, not always the best things. But again, we come from a country where we have treated other people not always the best. And these are people internally. We can talk about Native Americans. We can talk about immigrants. We can talk about slaves. So we have a history of putting up signs of, no Chinese, no Irish can apply. We have history of that. So I think we need to be a little more self-aware of some of what the Palestinians have experienced.
Sure.
Does it excuse the attacks? But
you can have policy conversations.
Yeah.
You can have personal policy conversations. And the president of Colombia talks about that in her letter. By the way, this was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So the president of Colombia clearly hired people to prepare her for what she was about to go through. Right?
Yeah.
I would have too.
Yeah, you
right?
have to. Yeah.
She put a letter the day before in the Wall Street Journal. What I plan to tell Congress tomorrow, anti-Semitism and calls for genocide have no place at a university.
Yeah.
My priority has been the safety and security of our community, but that leaves plenty of room for robust disagreement and debate.
And tactically, the idea, and you know what she's doing by releasing that letter in the Wall Street Journal the day before,
is controlling the narrative.
Yes, she's trying to take the air out of the balloon so that it isn't the questioning.
And
Yeah,
then I guarantee you what I've done with debate prep and how I've done and prepared my clients that were candidates as well is you get every possible question you could.
Oh, absolutely.
What they train you is write down the 10 hardest questions you could possibly get, write your answers to them so you are the most prepared person in the room. Yeah. Always walk in and being the most prepared person in the room. Now, I don't think her testimony was great by any means, but I think she might survive it, whereas President Harvard and Pitt didn't as a result of
their answers were
lack of preparation.
Stupid. And that was it too. And I believe lack of preparation is right. Their answers were just, objectively dumb.
So, so obviously she was ahead of it, but why are we as somebody who's about to send their kids to college, and you send your kids to college, I am not interested in helping finance some professors' desire to run out there and just come up with whatever crazy theory they do.
Yeah.
I am sending, this is particular for undergraduate. You can get into postgraduate and you can explore stuff like that. My 19-year-old, I am going to pay to send to college to, one, develop a true understanding of the world. A true understanding of what the world is and how it works. Like we don't question 2 + 2 = 4. It is 2 + 2 = 4. And I want them to learn the truth of this world. And then I want them to develop competency.
Yeah.
So they can, if they're going to be an accountant, you're going to be a good accountant based on the truth of the world. I am not interested in paying $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year for you to go and get listen to some crazy contrived ideas developed by leftist professors, and then have all the values I put into my children unraveled because of these crazy theories. I'm not going to pay for that.
Yeah.
I'm paying for truth. I'm paying for character development, and I'm paying for competency.
Now, I got a question on that one, but I do agree that the Columbia professor that was cited in the clip that you just played was out of bounds based on their advocacy for the violence. But, and this is the difficult part in this conversation, what is the truth about the conflict between Israel and Palestine? And I'm talking about the entirety of the story, that truth. And that
I'm
may
not
be
opposed
something
to looking at the entirety of the story.
But I think that's what some of the protesters are asking us to do, is to understand and consider the entirety of the story. Now, I believe that some of their slogans are misdirected, wrong, and stupid and offensive. But I think that's where their emotion comes from. That they're looking at, do you understand the entirety of the story?
Yeah, look, those types of conversations, a deep analysis of this, I'm not concerned at all. But you have high-level universities that should be training the future leaders of our country with outright anti-Semitism taking place on their campuses. And the presidents, who I think are too weak and afraid to confront the radical left that has embraced in this outright anti-Semitism, should clear off their campuses of that. And if you're going to, like look, I understand free speech as it relates to the government, but these are private institutions. If they're state funded, that's a little different, but we need to get back to university leadership that's willing to teach truth, character development, competency. And when you have just outright hostility and bullying and anti-Semitism, they should clearly just clear it off their campuses and say, we're not going to deal with this.
I see your point. The thing that I think gets sticky is when we talk about people teaching truth and character. I think that oftentimes depends on perspective and where you sit. Because when people talk about truth and character, chances are you want them to teach the truth that you want and the character values that you embrace.
Don't you think there's a truth?
Here's the thing. I have been arguing for 6 years about truth being immutable, but we can go down an entire rabbit hole of people that think that things were stolen and manipulated and things about vaccines and viruses.
And you wouldn't want those taught, those perspectives taught as truth if they were wrong, right?
But I get, and you've seen them here, the text messages and the emails that we get about the fact that I don't know the truth. I'm coming and I bring out this information and I get chastised for the fact that I'm not speaking the truth. And I get that. We've got 2 or 3 of them this week based on things that I bring out. When we were talking about the amount of money that the corporations are making, I was accused of not knowing the truth. When I talked about the timeline with Joe Biden and Burisma, I was accused about not knowing the truth. And so that's the problem, is I don't think in this conversation or any conversation that as Americans, we can even agree on the truth anymore. And I think that's a much deeper issue.
That's a huge issue.
Yeah. And I think some of that conversation is because of universities. And I completely, again, disagree with that professor's perspective. But I can see one that would be more the idea. We have to understand why the Palestinians feel so wrong, what has been going on. It doesn't excuse the violence. And that's why I never am getting angry about Israel, about how they're prosecuting this war and this conflict, because of how the conflict at this moment started, because of the violence. There wasn't the same amount of violence going on beforehand, but one side decided to come in and attack a bunch of civilians. And I understand their reasoning as to why over generations they felt justified in doing that. But I don't think there's a justification morally or ethically for that. So I do side with them. But I do also think that when I hear people saying, well, we have to make sure that these people on these campuses can't say this or protest this, to me, that gets more Orwellian. The idea of the thought control on the liberal side and this liberal bias inside of the universities. And then I hear people saying, no, they shouldn't be allowed to say this. They're teaching things wrong. I feel that it's just the other side of the same coin, that the people that are complaining about the indoctrination on the left in universities aren't really at their core upset about the doctrination. They're just mad about it's the wrong doctrination. If it was a indoctrination that they were agreeable to, they'd be happy if that's how it went. And I think that's the key, is we need to be okay confronting those things that at times make us the most upset, because that's what we need to do in the society for truly free.
Where do you fall along this line? How important is academic freedom to college campuses? Or is it important that truth is taught and that this type of stuff is pushed off campus, and that university presidents are not doing a good enough job, particularly with the next generation, of helping them understand what's right and wrong? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. A lot of text messages coming in. We'll get to all of that and more. Look, we all want a kinder, gentler way to experience wellness and overcome pain. I'm thriving and fighting back my workout soreness with UltraCur. UltraCur is a patented, non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. Surveys show that 50% of people using UltraCur find relief within 48 hours, and half of those within 2 hours. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur is fueled by a patented technology to give you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. If you've tried everything without much success, even other natural curcumin products, you owe it to yourself to try UltraCur today. UltraCur gives you unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. Get curious, Denver. Head to the natural grocers and grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. Wondering about the research? Get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has invited House Speaker Mike Johnson to his Mar-a-Lago resort for a joint press conference today. Haley Bianco reports.
Election integrity will take center stage today as House Speaker Mike Johnson and former President Donald Trump hold a joint press conference at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. The joint appearance also comes at a time when Johnson can benefit from a strong show of support from the former commander-in-chief, as Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has been threatening to oust Johnson from his post.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says freedom and democracy are under threat around the globe, warning that Ukraine today could be East Asia tomorrow. He was speaking in the first address to a joint session of the U.S. Congress by a Japanese leader in almost a decade. Mr. Kishida reaffirmed his country's deepening relationship with the United States, urging it to continue playing what he called a pivotal role on the world stage. His speech follows his visit to the White House and came shortly before an unprecedented trilateral meeting alongside President Joe Biden and President Marcos of the Philippines, where the three
All right, you just heard it. It's that time. Caller 10 at 303-696-1971 wins a $50 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea restaurants. Proudly serving delicious home-style cooking with 8 Colorado locations. Online at blackeyedpeacolorado.com. And don't forget to join us this Friday, tomorrow, for breakfast with Jeff and Bill, along with a very special guest, 710 KNUS afternoon host, Brandon Tatum. It's a live broadcast this Friday morning at the Black Eyed Pea location in Castle Rock. Get details at 710knus.com. For the best home-cooked meal away from home, it's the Black Eyed Pea. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Caller 10 wins a $50 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea restaurants. All right, let's go to Greg in Arvada. Greg, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. So first, I want to acknowledge the point where, I want my values and my beliefs taught to the next generation. So I'm guilty of that. I'm also a big believer, though, in the First Amendment and also a believer in freedom of association. And I think we should let universities teach and people learn whatever they choose. I think the problem that we have is we have federally funded student loans that have, since the time of their inception, put so much money into the education system that education is now very expensive and very not productive. So when they first came about, it was to make sure that, hey, this is an avenue towards success in life. But now there's so much money, there's a supply of money, which has then caused the inflation of education and complete inefficiencies. And people can go and get useless degrees that will not pay for the loans, but they can still get them. If we remove federally guaranteed loans, then banks will determine who gets a loan to educate, and banks will bear the responsibility of their decisions. So if banks want to be woke and loan that money and not get paid back, that's fine. But you'll find that most of them will say, oh, engineers, yes. Medical professionals, yes. Good grades, good student, wants a business degree, great. You want to study dance theory? Sorry, there's no future for that.
Greg, to your point, so this is what happened with college education. The government, and we did this with housing too. We looked at people that were successful in our society, and we said, well, a lot of them have college degrees. Not everybody, but a lot of them have college degrees. So we want people to be successful. College is key for them to becoming successful. So we're going to encourage everybody to go to college. And what was traditionally kind of a natural hierarchy that developed, where you had some people that went to college, some people went into trades, and people did just fine in trades and people did just fine in college. You end up with a skewed kind of artificially inflated number of people that were going to college that probably shouldn't have ever gone to college in the first place, either because they couldn't compete at that academic level, or they would have been perfectly fine in a trade. But and there's studies that have shown this, especially with like affirmative action in colleges, where people got into high-level academic universities and would have been just fine at like a state school, but competing at Harvard among all the other smartest people in the country. And I didn't get into Harvard. I didn't even try to go to Harvard. I went to a school that fit my academic level. And you allowed people into these high levels that shouldn't have been there. They got discouraged. They didn't finish their degrees. They ended up with debt when they would have been perfectly fine going to a state school. So everything got artificially adjusted by the government based off of good intentions, and you end up with a broken system. But Greg, you said something there about like, well, allow people to kind of pursue what they want to in college, or whatever their truth may be, they should be able to pursue. We don't really do that with things like accounting, right? Or engineering. If you're going to build bridges, there's the right way to build a bridge and the wrong way to build a bridge, right?
Yeah, if you pursue your own truth in accounting, that's a felony. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But we look, all the great colleges in America started out as seminaries. There was a universal truth that they were based upon, which was there was a God, there's a God that is active in the affairs of man, there is truth, we're going to train you that way. And now they've spun off into kind of everything's truth, your truth is okay, you can pursue whatever you want. And look, I'm not against dialogue, I'm not against debate, I'm not against any of that stuff. But when you're dealing with an undergraduate education, 18 to 22 years old, forming the future leaders of our country, and you just allow them to spin off into anti-Semitism or there is no truth or pursue your truth, or we're not going to prepare our country for good leadership.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not. But if you remove the automatic funding mechanism for that, it dies quickly.
I think you're right.
No one's going to pay for that if they have to pay for it out of their pocket. They think it's great that, quote unquote, they pay for it, not knowing who they is. But if you remove the funding, it solves the problem. So
yeah, and to look, I'm sensitive to this because my wife did not. She grew up in a very challenging situation where she relied upon grants to be able to get her into college. So I'm not against, and she spent a lot of time getting scholarships. She did every possible little, Lions Club, Rotary Club type of scholarship she could get to piece it together. There are people that are born into tough circumstances that need help to be able to get into college and be able to pay for college. And so to your point, Greg, like what you said was perfect. There are banks, there are organizations that will invest in talented people because they can see the potential in them. They know it's a good investment. They know they'll get paid back. They know these people will go do things. My wife went to law school. She worked for members of Congress. She worked in the White House. She's incredibly brilliant, successful person. And I think banks would invest in her. But if you're just throwing money out there from the government into anybody that wants to get underwater basket weaving and then embrace anti-Semitism and Hamas level thinking in college, you're going to end up wasting money on people that, the government shouldn't be funding. We lost Greg.
Yeah,
but
he
Greg,
dropped off.
I was with Greg on that. I think you get the government out of it. Yeah, you're going to make the cream's going to rise to the top. The people that should get funding to go to colleges from banks and are willing to take out loans, I think they'll still get it. And maybe the people that shouldn't have ever been in college in the first place won't go.
I am sympathetic to where Greg is on the subject, but here's the idea: is anybody coming out of a lower economic situation isn't going to be able to get that funding or those loans. That is something that is going to be geared for families that are well off and can provide the assets. So if you're the first one in your, you're the first one in your family ever to go to college, what type of assets do you really think that family has that he can then put up to get a loan to go to college?
If you go to those banks and you have great grades through high school, you have lots of civic engagement, you were leadership role on your sports teams. And like what my wife did is you have to bundle it all together. You got to go get a little bit from the Rotary Club, and then you got to get a little bit from the Lions Club, and you got to put that all together to pay for your education.
Yeah, but
I think those people are fine.
Rotary Club and Lions Club is different than a bank, though, because a bank isn't
part of it.
But a bank isn't going to give you a loan based on your good character. They're going to do it based on assets. No, it's going to be part of it, but it's assets. If they don't have assets to counterbalance what they're giving you, they're not going to give you the money because they're going to be on the hook. You could be the best guy in the world that then could turn out to do something wrong or get involved with the wrong people, and they would be on the hook for that. So unless you can and that's the issue with the bank idea. And I am very sympathetic to where Greg is, but I can see what ends up happening is there is a ceiling. Anybody below a certain economic ceiling will never be able to afford the higher education, and that becomes a self-fulfilling cycle because then they can't get that education that would bring their family up to the next level of the rung, and so then their kids are doomed to create the same cycle, and since they couldn't accumulate the assets, they can't get the loans, they can't get the access, and so it just continues. It's part of the way that I'm so mad about the legacy situations at Ivy League schools and other places. That's just crap. The idea that just because mom, dad, or a grandfather went there, that then you get to get in, bite me. Like, come on. I mean, if you really think that you're that good, if you can, then compete with everybody else. That's what we talk about.
Do you think, though, that there are people in college that shouldn't be in college?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we've got to address
I think there are
that.
people that are employed that shouldn't be employed. I think there are people that are running our country that shouldn't be running our
Yes,
country.
I
So we
agree.
can get a long list of these people that I want out of here. Yeah.
What we're talking about, protesters are swarming the Columbia University campus as frustration grows over the school's handling of anti-Semitism. Just yesterday, you had the president of Columbia in front of Congress testifying, and here's how it went. It didn't go well for her.
Day after the October 7th attack, Professor Joseph Mossad, and I only single him out amongst numerous others that I could single out because he particularly is a tenured professor and chairs the School of Arts and Sciences Academic Review Committee. He wrote in an article praising, and I quote him, "the innovative Palestinian resistance," end quote, for attacking Israel and glorifying Hamas's slaughter of nearly 1,200 Jews as, and I quote again, "awesome, astonishing, astounding, and incredible." President Shafiq, you recently said, and I quote, "It is absolutely unacceptable for any member of the Columbia community to promote the use of terror and violence," end quote. Do you condemn Professor Mossad's statement, and has he faced any consequences for it?
Congressman, I do condemn his statement. I am appalled by what he said.
Any consequences?
He has been spoken to.
Spoken
and I
to?
should just, and I think you could.
So support of terrorism is acceptable if you're a Columbia professor?
Not at all. And I should say.
He's been spoken to.
I didn't get to fit.
I have your answer.
I just want to confirm that when faculty behave in any discriminatory fashion at Columbia.
You talk to them.
There are consequences. No, we take them out of the classroom if necessary.
Is he out of the classroom?
From leadership posts if necessary. We allow students to leave those classes if they feel at all uncomfortable.
Is he out of the classroom?
He is. I believe, to answer your question, he is no longer chair of that committee and does not have a leadership role.
But not out of the classroom.
I listened to that, and it's very clear to me that our universities are failing. They're failing to keep professors accountable. They're failing to teach students truth. I get very passionate about it. I worked for a university for 8 years. I think universities should be religious-based. I think they need to teach not only that Christ is truth, but that you need to develop character, what it means to be a good person, be very clear on what it means to be a good person, teach that to 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and teach them competency, how to work hard, how to show up on time, how to deliver for their boss, how to be qualified accountants and attorneys and political leaders and teachers and counselors and musicians and all that stuff. We used to have great universities in this country. They are falling apart, and they are falling apart because they got rid of truth. That's my position. Give me a call. Tell me what you think. 303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Hey, folks, it's Jeff on behalf of the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture continue improving the efficiency of their irrigation systems and adopting farming practices that help crops use less water to grow. They're planting drought-resistant varieties, and they're leading talks with state policymakers about how to preserve water supplies when we have good years like this last one. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join us. We'll get your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Protests are exploding across Columbia University over Israel versus Hamas issues. The president of Columbia testifying before Congress yesterday, and an article in The Atlantic, Gaza is dividing Democrats. No recent Democrat president has faced such fierce internal conflict over a foreign policy issue. Do you think this could possibly sink the Biden presidency in his reelection effort? It only takes 1 or 2%. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Jim in Littleton. Jim, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. I'm just, going to chime in and thinking parents' failure to direct their kids or talk to them about what their career goals are.
Yeah.
I've got a couple friends that had their daughters go to DU, and they went and got either some sort of literature degree or teaching degree, and they're like over $100,000 in debt. And they could have easily have gotten the same degree going to a community college,
Yep.
or starting those years going that way and then ending up at a 4-year, but they didn't. And it's just insane that you would be going to one of these Ivy League schools to get just a basic degree in teaching and stuff like that. And they just wanted to have that pigskin, I guess we call it.
Yep. Jim, Mike Rowe says, those degrees are just becoming receipts on the wall. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll continue this conversation.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Denver. It's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you have tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Tomorrow, Brandon Tatum is joining us live in person. We're expecting a great turnout down at the Black Eyed Pea in Castle Rock. We'll be broadcasting live there from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. You can come on down, enjoy some delicious breakfast, hang out with us. We're going to have Lisa Frizzell in the 6 o'clock hour. She's the state rep that represents Castle Rock. She'll be joining us 6 a.m. hour. And then Jeff Crank, candidate for Congressional District 5, will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. Look, I know how to throw a party, man. I got in a lot of trouble in high school for this. So I might as well at least use this in my professional career. We're going to have politicians. We're going to have friends. We're going to have candidates, everybody joining us.
Yeah, and hopefully you.
And you, and good breakfast, too. So it's going to be, might be a little kind of gray, cloudy day. So what better than good home-cooked breakfast?
Yeah, come visit one of the best restaurants in Colorado. They used to be they were local, went national, they messed it up, and the original owners carved it back and said, no, you've screwed this up. The financials are bad. Let us take control and bring Black Eyed Pea in Colorado back to what it originally was, which is great home cooking. It's absolutely fantastic. And we're going to give you a chance to win $15 in free Black Eyed Pea food here later this hour and yet again next hour. So keep listening, and you've got a chance to win some free stuff.
All right. So be listening, be a part of the show, and come join us tomorrow. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson.
All right, Jeff, just don't turn it into Animal House or anything. Okay?
Oh, it will.
Yeah,
it will. In fact,
that'd be great.
All the more reason to come.
I love it. 33 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 40s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, pro-Hamas supporters losing their minds in New York outside of Columbia University and on the campus last night and this morning as New York police cracking down. Hey, this is what you get. They're starting fires and all types of chaos.
I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli. My mother's Israeli. I have family there. And honestly, we're in pain. Our community was attacked.
The rise in anti-Semitism on our campus has been abhorrent. There were students who were attacked for speaking Hebrew and for hanging up signs denouncing Hamas. There are people over there who are cheering with Palestinian flags after women were raped.
So you have Israeli supporters and Hamas supporters on campus. A lot of things going on in New York, including former President Trump's criminal trial in the Big Apple. It resumes today with another day of jury selection, and the media all over that. President Biden on the campaign trail in Pennsylvania and a bit confused over Rafah, called it something else as he advises Israel allegedly.
And I made it clear to Israelis, don't move on Haifa. It's just not, anyway, I just, look what we did recently when Israel was attacked.
Rafah, Haifa, whatever.
What the heck is wrong with our I can't believe that guy is our commander-in-chief.
It's amazing. But, you keep on jamming it down in front of people, and they're just so used to it now. If you showed this 5 years ago or 6 years ago, people, what?
Yep,
There's
that's
no
exactly
way.
right.
Just dole it down, numb everybody. Well, today, Biden expected to receive endorsements from Kennedy family members who do not support RFK. More than 24 Google employees have reportedly been fired, as Jeff was talking about earlier, following sit-in protests over a project involving the company and, of course, is the Israeli government. They don't like that. The employees, also known as lefties, took over office spaces, defaced property, and physically impeded the work of others. Very interesting how all this is coming back around.
What would you say you do here?
I had to.
Oh, Blake, that is awesome. So that's from the movie Office Space, which is one of
Yes.
my very favorite movies. And
Favorite.
look,
Number
I
one
mean,
comedy of all time.
you think so? You think
I
that's your
think so.
top, huh?
That's just me. It's probably my age, but to me, that's number one. No
So,
doubt. Tommy Boy's number two.
Oh, I was watching David Spade talk about just like the idea that you would even pitch Tommy Boy to any studio these days. These guys are gonna drive around Midwest America trying to sell brake pads.
Sounds like a great movie. Love it, man. Anything they were involved in was pretty good, man. Denver City Council's Finance and Governance Committee, speaking of comedy, has approved a $41 million in budget cuts to support the city's ongoing illegal immigrant response. The mayor's office would see the largest percentage of cuts at 9.6%, while get this one, Denver police and fire departments would see the largest cuts in terms of dollar amounts. The measure will be heard in front of the full council on Monday. If approved, the funding will become available by next month.
So when Mike Johnston originally did his pitch on this, it was like, well, we're just we're going to keep the classes for police and firefighters, the new recruit classes coming in, where they're just not going to get their furniture. And then 9 News even did a deep dive on this and said, actually, you're not filling vacancies, so you're going to keep these open. These are serious cuts. This isn't just furniture that you guys aren't paying for, but
these are the consequences.
That's exactly right.
You want to help everyone around the world. You don't want a sovereign nation. You get what you vote for. Here we go again. Get what you vote for. 29 in Lone Tree, 30 in Thornton, and 33 in Denver.
Stop is under it. He says he's got it, and he does. And it's their first sweep of the 2024 season.
Rockies swept by the Phillies Wednesday. They return to Coors Field tomorrow for a series with Seattle. Avs close out the regular season tonight, and the Nuggets get ready for the first round NBA playoffs against the Lakers on Saturday. All right, Thursday with Jeff and Billy continues. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
710 5-day forecast calls for unseasonably chilly temperatures for Denver in the Front Range as we go through the next 3 days. Partly to mostly cloudy and cold. Few isolated snow or rain showers, highs low to mid 40s. Few snow showers, low to mid 30s tonight. Cloudy and cold Friday, lower 50s. A few rain and snow showers, maybe a thunderstorm late in the day. Then a few snow showers Friday night, lower 30s. Few rain and snow showers early Saturday, near 50, then warmer Sunday. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS. The 710 5-day forecast.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. This Saturday is the 25th anniversary of the Columbine shooting that took place 25 years ago. How has school safety changed since then? Do you all remember where you were when that happened? I was a junior in high school at Cherry Creek in my chemistry class when that news broke. They locked down Creek for a few hours as they were trying to deal with it. But my goodness, when you think about how our world has changed since then, how police response has changed since then, how we treat students that are bullied, all that stuff, suicide hotlines, text tip hotlines, all that stuff.
What resonates with me is I was working at another radio group in town at the time, and I remember sitting in meetings and having conversations about starting these memorial funds for the students there. And part of what they were talking about is, never forgetting never and never letting this happen again. And we kind of have failed on part of that mission. We still remember.
Yep.
But the never again part, yeah, not so much. And that's hard. That's
Joining
really hard.
us on the Jeff and Bill show is George Brockler. After the Columbine High School shooting, Brockler prosecuted 2 men who sold weapons to the shooters. And as you know, was the lead prosecutor in the James Holmes case. That was the Aurora shooting case as well. George, thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Other than the topic, it's just wonderful to be on with you.
Yeah, absolutely. As a lot of people know, this used to be your show. You're now running for district attorney. We'll get into that in just a second. But as you think back 25 years ago, first of all, where were you when Columbine happened? And share with people your role in prosecuting the 2 men that sold weapons to the shooters.
Yeah, great question. And not a lot of people ask that. I'll begin by saying this. Columbine was the next over high school from the one I graduated from 11 years before it happened. So I graduated from Bear Creek High School in '88. Go Bears. And this was one I'd been in. I'd been in this high school before, for basketball games and other events. And you had friends or rivals or whatever that were there. So this was a completely familiar place to me. But on that particular day, I was driving back from the courthouse to the Jeffco DA's office, and I had a small black and white tube TV in my office. I was like one of the only people that did, sitting on a little fridge. And I remember coming to my office, and it was packed. 30 or 40 people are packed into an office that should comfortably hold 5. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And the numbers that were reported, and they're always like this for these mass shooting cases, wildly wrong. Like, oh, there's 4 shooters at Columbine. There are 40 victims. And nobody knows the numbers, but it was chaos. So that's where I was when it happened. At some point, it becomes apparent that this thing is going to be much bigger than anything we've ever encountered before. There starts to be word that like Janet Reno is going to come out, from the DOJ, the Attorney General back then. And there was a great prosecutor, my old chief, my very first chief, guy named Mark Potler, who I run into down by the mailboxes in the office. And he says, hey, I want you to come with me. And he takes me out to Columbine, and we walk the school, and we sit down with investigators, and we start going through some of the things that they've got. And ultimately, they decide they're going to assign this case to the chief judge. The chief judge says, and his name's Henry Nieto. Governor Owens ends up appointing him to the Court of Appeals later, but at the time he was just the chief judge. And I was assigned to them, to that courtroom. And so they decide, chief judge wants the case. And they could have taken me off easily. But they said, we're going to leave Brockler on here. Steve Jensen's a fantastic chief deputy. They put he and I on the case, and we end up with the investigators tearing apart every possible angle for responsibility here. And you'll remember that the 2 gunmen killed themselves in the library. They had a suicide pact to begin with, and they fulfilled it. So the hunt was on for, no pun intended, Jeff, the hunt was on for, is there some other person or persons out there who led to this that should be held accountable? Folks have asked, well, what about the parents? Believe me, we looked, but they instantly lawyered up. So we did not have access to them. There was no way we're getting a search warrant for their homes, for anything beyond what we ended up finding in the Harris's basement. Actually, I think we did get into Klebold's house as well. But we got no statements from them. It wasn't like the Michigan parents, right, where there was a ton of information. We didn't have it. This was also pre-social media. So there wasn't like a trail of things that they had done. But we did come across the weapons, and the weapons we ended up chasing down with the help of the ATF and the super cops that we have. And they traced the Tech DC-9 handgun to 2 guys named Mark Manis and Phil Duran. And they were 2 guys that had sold for cash that handgun to these 2 guys that were at the time juveniles. And that makes it a 4th-class felony crime at the time of providing a handgun to a juvenile. It's punishable by 2 to 6 years in the Department of Corrections. It's a probation eligible charge. But these guys both got sent to prison, one for 6 years, one for 4.5.
Wow. I didn't know that aspect on the guys that had sold it. When you go and you were looking in their homes, can you tell people what you found when you were looking in their homes?
Man, there's a basement tape. That's what they call it because it was made in the basement. And it has since been destroyed by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. But I sat down and watched this tape. And the reason it exists is this plan to commit this mass murder at the high school. And it's so uncharacteristic of teenage boys. You, me, and Bill were all teenage boys. You know that the ability to keep a secret, impossible, right? Let alone to carry out a plan with another teenage boy. These two guys plotted successfully and secretly for over a year to pull this thing off. And part of that process was that they would use an old JVC style camcorder and record different things that they did. They recorded themselves driving to an Army Navy surplus store to buy things they thought that they would need, like the I'm going to call it web gear, but the load bearing equipment. It's where you put your magazines and other stuff. You know, they videotaped themselves with Mark Manis and Phil Duran going to an outside sort of, not a shooting range, but where they shot off weapons and stuff like that. We had all that stuff on video. And then they filmed the basement. And in the basement, it was Eric Harris's, it's a half-finished basement in the Harris's house. And Eric Harris's bedroom, which had a lock on the door, which is inconceivable to me as a guy who grew up in the home of my mom, who was maybe the nosiest parent ever, but it paid off. And in his room, they did this one video where Klebold takes on the voice of Eric's mom and is like, "Oh, Eric, let's see what's in your room." And they'd open the door and walk around. And he'd say things like, "Oh, this looks like just like a regular teenage boy's room." And then they start showing people on the camera, clearly intending this to be available after their deaths. They show everybody where everything's hidden. So they turn, there's a desk. And they open up the desk drawer, and there's all these dismantled clocks. And the dismantled clocks were because they were trying to perfect a timer mechanism, if you remember this, to detonate the bomb that they had placed in the school after a dance. And the bomb was a propane tank with a kerosene tank taped to it and a gasoline tank on the other side. And they'd put a small charge there that they wanted to blow this thing up when everybody was at lunch. It doesn't work. But meanwhile, all those things are in the desk drawer. When I saw that on the video, and this video is eerie. I mean, these images will be in my head forever. I remember thinking right then and there, my mom would have derailed this, because my mom would have been waiting for me to come home from school and say, "Why the hell did you destroy all these clocks? Like, what are you doing?" And I'd be like, "I am." And she'd be like, "I don't believe you, wait for your dad." And then they would have torn apart the room and found everything else. But these parents were so permissive and trusting of their son, they never did that. So they go to the closet. In the closet, there's a box that looks like it holds a BB rifle, but inside it is actually the carbine that they had. They have a series of bookshelves that have CDs, if people remember what CDs are, back along the thing. And they pull out the CDs, and behind them are these homemade pipe bombs that they had made of various sizes. And they gave them these ridiculous military sounding names like Alpha and Beta, which isn't a real military term. And they have all those things. Then they have a plastic box next to the bed. And you open it up and you pull some plastic off, and there's all the magazines and the load-bearing equipment and all this stuff. And it was just kind of hiding in plain sight in a way. And so there's other parts of the video that they sat around and passed back and forth a legal pad where they had made notes of every single racial epithet you can think of, and just recorded each other reading them and laughing about them into the video and stuff like that. So we found all that stuff. That video was intentionally left for the police, and we found it. And that's what came out of the basement. That stuff.
Talking to George Brockler, former district attorney for the 18th Judicial District and is a candidate for district attorney in the newly created 23rd Judicial District. Talking about Columbine 25th anniversary this Saturday, April 20th. George, I think rational people try to find rational solutions to these types of catastrophes, these horrific murders that took place. When I listen to you explain what you just did, I go, yeah, bullying was probably a part of it. Yeah, parental engagement was probably a part of it. These guys just kind of sound evil too. And there's no real rationality when you're dealing with that type of evil. Is that your take on this? Yeah, there's things that could have stopped this. There's things that could have stepped in, and I think I remember you even saying this about James Holmes at one point too, and you prosecuted that case. These people are just bent on hurting other people.
Well, they are. And I think that when we look for answers after the fact, one, we want to do that because we want to know and we learn things. We learn things from how we responded to Columbine that have been adopted in the 25 years since that have made a difference. But what you're describing is we want to find the reason why, because in doing that, we feel like, one, we have more control, but two, we have the ability to protect ourselves from it. And the worst answer in the world for us to come to the conclusion of is the reality that you and Bill and I know, and that is there is evil in this world. And where there is evil, evil things will take place, because that you're less capable to predict. You're less capable of protecting yourself from it, certainly in a Colorado that continues to disarm its citizenry. But I'm saying, if you could point to this and say, oh, well, it was the product of bullying. Well, let's go tackle bullying then, and maybe we'll cut down on the instances. But I'm here to tell you, the bullying thing, garbage. That's not the answer to this thing. That part of it was, well, Eric Harris is this dark, brooding person who sucked this nice, affable, thespian kid, very popular Dylan Klebold into this. I don't believe that either. You watch that tape and you look at the two of them record things. Jeff, there's a moment at the end of this. They're walking out of their home to go commit this heinous murder of 13 people and injure another 20 to 24, right? And Eric Harris looks into the video camera and he says, Mom, I'm sorry. This isn't about you. This is just something that I have to do, right? Words to that effect. He then turns it to Klebold and says, do you want to say anything? And Klebold says basically, F you, Mom, F you. Camera goes dark and they head out. I mean, it's some of the most eerie stuff. But when you hear them talk in that very candid, unscripted way into the camera, this isn't bullying. There is an evil that lurked in them that was fostered by something that was allowed to exist undetected and unchecked for a period of time. And they went and they just did it. I mean, you look at Parkland, Uvalde, Santa Fe, Texas, STEM. There's always some grievance that these guys have created for themselves. But at the end of the day, for us to try to dismiss it as the product of, oh, it's just mental illness or it's some other thing, that's fake. That's fake. There is evil out there.
George Brockler, former district attorney for the 18th Judicial District and candidate for district attorney in the newly created 23rd Judicial District. George, that's very powerful. One of the things that changed, and I remember watching it, was police response. And you compare what happened with Columbine with what happened in Nashville, for instance. I remember that day where everybody held up with Columbine going, well, we're going to see what these guys' ransom demands are, essentially, right? Of course, they're not just going to indiscriminately kill people. They're going to want something, and we need to be able to negotiate with them. And then you see the boy crawl out of the library window. They pull up the SWAT van. The boy crawls out of the library window, and they grab him. And you see that that was a change in perspective in dealing with these guys. And then the shooting that took place in Nashville, where the cops just run in and engage the shooter as quickly as they can. And I've even done police training where it was a kind of a simulated thing for political leaders. Act like a SWAT team, address the shooter, engage, go, put fire on, that type of thing. Talk about how the police response has changed a little bit.
Yeah, and if you look at Columbine, if there was a hostage consideration, it was secondary to information. And that is, you had multiple agencies that respond to this scene, contacting multiple people from different vantage points. And so the feedback they'd get is, there's two guys in dusters, wearing those long jackets. And then someone else on another side of the building would say, I saw two guys that were wearing T-shirts. And so the cops are like, holy crap, are there four guys in there? And so where are they located? Oh, I saw them here in the school. I saw them there. And so some of that indecision, I think, palsied the will of the decision makers to execute. And I'll tell you, the 4 SWAT teams that went there from the metro area, every single one of those dudes would have rushed in had they been allowed to. They begged to. But it was the command staff and other decision makers who were like, hang on, we got to figure out what the hell we're doing here. And there are moments in descriptions where these guys they're operating on different radio channels, which has also been fixed, but even to communicate with one another across SWAT teams. But the indecision came from, we need to have more perfect information. And what you've described, Jeff, is actually what has grown out of this, which is when it comes to the most vulnerable, when it comes to our children, we are going to act. on the information we have. We are not going to seek perfect information. And what Grayson Robinson described is what took place, if you remember, on December the 13th, a Friday the 13th, back in 2013, a disgruntled senior student who had a lawfully acquired shotgun came to the school, let himself in through an unsecured side door, and came there with murder on his mind. And he ended up killing sweet, innocent Claire Davis. But when he pulls that trigger, the response is instant, and that is the SROs and the school security sprint towards where that gunshot is. That is now the immediate action drill. And in sprinting towards that, people got alerted from the gunshot. They fled. No other deaths, right? They surround this guy in the library. He sees he has nowhere to go, and he takes his own life. But this guy, and I'm walking around the crime scene, and the CBI guys pull up his sleeve. And he killed himself in the library, and he was still there when I got through the scene. He had written in Sharpie different classrooms on his forearm that he had intended to go to exact revenge. But because the response was so immediate and so different, he was never able to do that. So you're right, Jeff, that's the response. And that then highlights why Uvalde was so inexplicable. That's what highlights when that guy at Parkland, that police officer out there, just freezes out there because he says he doesn't know what's going on. That's no longer the acceptable response. The acceptable response is you get in there and address the threat.
George Brockler here on Jeff and Bill. George, former district attorney running for the Judicial District 23 right now, and former host on this program, and friends of both of ours, which is kind of nice. Now, sir, I want to explore that a little bit more. The idea of lessons learned. From your experience, what are some of the best lessons that we've learned with these shootings? But also, what are some of the failures? In your opinion, what are some of the things that we still need to address that we aren't?
Man, that's a super tough one. You know, each of these incidents teaches you something new, and the real struggle with that is that means they keep happening, one, and two, we haven't figured them out, right? So they keep happening. We keep learning new things. So, for instance, in STEM, they had these magnetic strips over the door locks that kept the door from locking. But in times of emergency, you could pull the strips off and lock the doors so the bad guys are out. That sounds great, except it's STEM. The bad guys lock themselves in by taking those same strips off. So we then find, okay, well, that's clearly a weakness now, too. I mean, the number one lesson learned is the one that Jeff just asked me about, and that is the immediate response. But the others that grow out of this are, and I'll tell you, this is my own opinion from STEM. I don't work the civil case. That's a different guy. But they had no uniformed police there. And what we know are these mass shooters are freaking cowards every single time. That's why they target the innocent and who they perceive to be unprotected and unarmed. That is real. So STEM, unlike any of the other schools in Douglas County, had no uniformed SRO there. I know, and I believe this. If there had been a uniformed patrol car in front of that building on a daily basis, had there been a sheriff's deputy armed, visibly armed, with a badge, walking that building, these two cowards, the 16 and 18-year-old, never pull this off. Do they do something else horrible? Maybe, but not the way they did this. I think they perceived a soft target and they took action on it. So we're still struggling as a community. Like right now, you have the state legislature. My God, the state legislature trying to blow up a program called FASTER that Laura Carnell's put together that helps school districts that are in places that are remote from law enforcement's immediate response to be able to train and put teachers on a voluntary basis armed in a classroom to be able to provide a response. The legislature has said, no, we don't want that anymore. And it's like, well, then you've learned nothing. You've learned nothing from any of these things. When people respond and they take action, these things, and STEM's another great example. The hero Kendrick Castillo. Kendrick and Brandon and Josh, the guys that bolted out of their seats to charge the gunman, immediate action ends these things. Palsied action makes more death and more carnage. But we have not yet figured out what to do to deter these cowards or to have the right response to them in the schools.
George Brockler, former district attorney for the 18th Judicial District, lead prosecutor against James Holmes in the Aurora Theater case, was also involved in prosecuting the guys that sold guns to the Columbine shooters. And he's running right now for the newly created 23rd Judicial District. I want to switch a little bit to that now, George. you want to get back into the game of being a DA. You sat in this seat for about a year hosting this radio program. Was it 2 years? 2 years.
It was just about 2 years. Yeah.
You've been a part of these cases. I mean, historic cases. Why do you want to get back in the fight?
A couple different things, man. One, this opportunity is as much a challenge as anything any prosecutor's confronted in memory. We have not had a new judicial district stand up in 60 years. There's no playbook for this. There's nobody alive who can say, hey, here are the things to do. This is my community, man. I've lived here for almost 30 years. Everything important in my life is in this jurisdiction. And you combine that with the current changes in the approach to prosecution in the metro area, and they have been to take inexperienced people who are hyper partisan and plug them into these critical public safety roles. And I don't want that for my community. And if I have the opportunity to use the experience and the expertise that I've developed to help build this plane as it taxis down the runway to make sure it gets off the ground and flies smoothly with as little turbulence as possible for the public, that's what I'm called to do, man. Listen, I love the radio, as you know, Jeff, and Bill's known this forever, but as you know, Jeff, it's addicting, man, because you get to have that constant interaction with the public and you feel like you're having the conversations that matter during the day. I didn't walk away from that lightly. But this right here, man, I have a very limited skill set, but being a prosecutor that holds the bad guys accountable and gets justice, that just happens to be one of them.
If you want to learn more about George Brockler, go to georgebrockler.com. You can learn about his campaign there for district attorney in Colorado's 23rd Judicial District. George, as we wrap up here, 25-year anniversary of Columbine. You got a lot of people. I mean, that was a very powerful interview. You gave us insight that I don't think anybody else knew about what those guys were like that committed that horrible atrocity. What's your closing message to the people of Colorado on the 25-year anniversary of Columbine?
Two big things, but they're related. One is no notoriety, and that is the new trend, and it's worthwhile since Aurora is we report on the shooter. You get the name and the picture out one time, but then you move on and you focus on the community and specifically the victims. And while we talk about these two guys and prosecution is always about the bad guys, the victims are the ones to remember here. Those 12, who, by the way, if you do the math, those people would be 43, 42, 41 years old. Who knows what families they would have had, what lives they would have led, what things they would have done for their surrounding community. We just don't get to know that. And then the survivors who were shot and injured and lives changed, but they've lived on. We just don't know how the trajectory of our own world, our own community is impacted by these horrific things. But on this 25th memorial, that's who I would ask the community to reflect upon. And then the follow-on is, how do we stop it? Or how do we mitigate against it? How do we protect ourselves from it?
George Brockler, appreciate it. Thanks so much for helping us reflect on Columbine's 25th anniversary. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
I just want to say thank you guys for having me on to talk about this. And I want to remind people, screw you for having a better show than I have.
I think Westward gave you an award too. We just got it really quick. So, there you go.
Yeah, I think they had to etch my name off of it and add you and Bill on. That's what I'm telling myself.
Actually, we did it with Sharpie. I hooked up with Patty and we Sharpied it off. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Well, gents, thanks for having me on.
Thank you, George Brockler. You can learn more about him at georgebrockler.com, former host of this very show. I appreciate you being on. Look, if you're losing your hair and you need a simple solution that works, you want the best. Modern technology with top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need to call Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration, from the experience itself to their unmatched results. Receding hairline, bald spot, or thinning hair, address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments. And get this, Your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It starts with your free consultation. Call 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you also get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. Here's the question I got for you all after that conversation. One, holy cow, bro. That description of what that video was like.
Yeah.
It's like gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And I was the age of all these guys and of all the victims too. I was a high school student. Do you think we're safer today?
No.
Than we were prior to that?
No, not in the least. Nope. And I appreciate what George was talking about as far as some of the ways that we've worked on the response end of things. And we've done some on the front of the prevention, but I still think that while we say this can't happen, this shouldn't happen in our society, we're not to the point where we actually want to get there. I don't think that we do, for a variety of different reasons. I think, and this is difficult, but I've had this perception, God, more than almost a decade now, that just a mass shooting has become the cover charge in America. That if you want to be part of American society, the cover charge will include anytime you step out the front door of your house, you, your friends, your family may not come home just because somebody else has a grievance. And in some cases, it may just be outside your house and someone inside your house will die from that because how we have taken to exercising our grievances, our frustrations, and how we feel we need to act out with our anger in order to hurt the society around us. That's where we are. And it's difficult for me, but I have had to compartmentalize this type of school violence and shootings because I can't care anymore because we don't. As Americans, we don't care enough. So I can't put the emotion into it. I can't put the effort and the time because we don't care. We just don't.
25th anniversary of Columbine is in 2 days, this Saturday. Give us a call as to answering some questions about this. One, do you think we're safer now than we were back then? 12, 13 victims, entire school running around. Have we gotten a handle of how to react to this better? Like with police responses? Do you lament? Are you frustrated that our kids are growing up with active shooter drills? That's their experience. I had to deal with tornado drills. I didn't have to deal with the communist, Cuba, Russia,
I did that.
That type of thing.
Desk.
Soviet Union.
Yeah,
get under your desk.
We had a siren. I hid under my desk. Yep, I was there.
Didn't have to deal with that. I had to deal with tornadoes. Are you frustrated? I'm frustrated that our kids are growing up with active shooter drills where you hide in bathrooms, turn off lights, secure classrooms. But on the other hand, I'm glad we know what to do because when I watched Columbine happen, nobody knew what was happening.
No, not at all.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. When we come back, we'll get into the gift certificates with the Black Eyed Pea restaurants. So you're going to want to stick around. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Sweden has voted to lower the age at which a person can change their legal gender from 18 down to 16. Currently, any Swede wanting to change their legal gender requires a doctor's diagnosis of gender dysphoria. But proponents of the new laws, which come into effect next year, say the process will now be simpler, with shorter consultation times with health officials and sign-off from a health and welfare board. Finance ministers from some of the world's largest economies are calling for a minimum tax on the super rich. Brazil and France on Wednesday said they're launching a joint initiative with the aim of getting all G20 nations on board with a plan by the summer. Tony Waterman has the story.
The main objective is to crack down on global tax dodging by companies and also the super rich, money that could otherwise be used to generate new revenue for governments and help fund social programs. According to the Tax Justice Network, nearly $500 billion is lost globally every year due to tax avoidance and abuse. G20 countries are looking to close tax loopholes and implement a global minimum tax for corporations.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's that time. Caller 10 at 303-696-1971 wins a $50 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea Restaurants, proudly serving delicious home-style cooking with 8 Colorado locations online at blackeyedpeacolorado.com. And don't forget to join us tomorrow, Friday, for breakfast with Jeff and Bill, along with a very special guest, 710 KNUS afternoon host Brandon Tatum. It's a live broadcast this Friday morning at the Black Eyed Pea location in Castle Rock. You can get details at 710knus.com for the best home-cooked meal away from home, especially on a cool day like tomorrow. It's going to be perfect, and we're going to have a ton of fun. So join us. Go to 710knus.com for details. It's going to be at the Black Eyed Pea. It's going to be a ton of fun. All right, Sean in Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. Yes, I wanted to comment on the story that George had just told.
Yeah.
There was a third person that supplied the killer with a. She was 18 at the time, went to school with them, and took to a gun show and bought a gun for them. And that person was never prosecuted. And the controversy around that is that she agreed to testify in front of the state legislature in order to get better gun control. And that is the rumor or the controversy around why she was never prosecuted.
Interesting. For those of you that just tuned in, at the top of the 8 o'clock hour, we interviewed George Brockler, who prosecuted two of the guys that sold guns to the perpetrators of Columbine. This Saturday is the 25th anniversary of Columbine and the massacre that resulted in 13 innocent people losing their lives and a whole lot of other people that were injured. Hard to believe 25 years ago. Sean, I'll ask you this question as we finish the last prior to the last commercial. Do you think we're safer now? We know how to respond to this. Would you say America's safer now than it was 25 years ago, or worse?
No, and I think we're not at all safer. And I have a 7-year-old that has to go through the drills, and it breaks my heart every time he has to do that.
And you're probably like me. You think about the safety of your kids every single day they're at school, every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had lockdown. I've gotten texts where I just say the school's on lockdown, and they say don't come, but I still go and stand outside until I know everything's safe.
What would you want to see change?
I am a proponent to see ability to high-powered weapons. I do like to shoot. I do enjoy guns, but I have shot an AR-15, and when I did that, I realized I was able to hit a bottle cap from 200 yards with very little effort, and that just is not something that I think people need to have access to, unless if I lived in a perfect world, there would be license for those mental health checks, and people could own them, but it would be limited to some sort of constraint.
Sean, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Sean from Denver. We're talking about the 25th anniversary of Columbine happening in just a few days. Let's go to Tony in Littleton. Tony, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, so I the question, are we safer? I like the previous caller, no way can I say we're safe. We're safer. I mean, I grew up in an era when, there was no such thing as this kind of a drill, and you'd mentioned that as well. I think we've reached the tipping point. We're beyond the tipping point now. We have an environment where any effort to, whether it's red flag laws, it's restrictions on high-powered weapons, anything that we think about doing, trying to prevent it, is perceived as a restriction on the Second Amendment right. I mean, it's the only right I know that it's just absolutely unrestricted. Everything goes. And so I think we kind of have to think about the solutions in the context that, at least at present, we can't do anything to make it safer. somebody had once said to me, the more we try to protect individual rights, then everybody has to give up their freedom. And that there's a lot of truth. You now, if you want to go to school and live a kind of a normal school life, you have to go through drills and you have to do all these things that they don't have that freedom. And the solutions that the Second Amendment supporting people would say is only more guns. We need more guns. We need more people carrying guns. We need more guns to try to make us safer from guns. Now, I think that's wrong, but I think that's where we're at. So if it is, we need to harden sites, metal detectors and cops and all of this expense. I do think that the solution is then create a tax like we have a gas tax. You drive on the roads, you pay gas tax. You want to have guns, there's a tax. So to pay for all of the expense to harden sites. If you don't have a gun, you don't pay that tax to harden the sites.
Tony, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We're up against a break here. Tony's from
Tony,
Littleton.
I'm sorry. We're up against a break. I apologize.
Yeah. So 25th anniversary of Columbine. Do you think that we're safer now than we were back then? Obviously, in some capacity, we're not responding the same way. I think we're better prepared for those types of situations that may happen. And have we gotten past the fallacy that gun-free zones are necessarily safer? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the 25th anniversary of Columbine. Let's go to Mike in Denver. Mike, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Hi. Am I on?
You're on. What's on your mind?
The FBI classifying everything that these killers ever wrote in their diaries. We're not any better off than we were back then, because they hide everything these killers ever say, think, or do, or why they did what they did. And in the end, all we have is a gun did it. And that's why all we ever argue is it a gun or isn't a gun?
Yeah,
And
I've
so-
noticed that about Nashville, too, the shooting at the Christian school, that manifesto had to be leaked. I think their concern is that this may inspire other actions, people that feel the
Well, you
same
know what
way.
that means? You know what that means? That means we got a bigger problem than one killer out there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a good
'Cause
point.
if there's so many people out there on the verge of killing, and if all they need is a little tip on what somebody wrote in the diary or what some girl did in Tennessee to tip them off, we got a bigger problem than a gun.
Mike
Or-
from
Wow,
Denver, I appreciate it.
Bringing the heat. That's deep,
yeah.
man.
Appreciate the call.
Wow.
All right, Erin Lee
Crap.
from the Art Club Movies up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Denver. It's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you have tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes a little crazy. It's another day in the great city of Denver, and we're gearing up for a whole hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. There's no other show like this. You go tune into the other stations, you'll get a monologue or you'll just get a news read. But we want you to be a part of the conversation that is shaping the city that we live in. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up in this hour, we're going to have a giveaway. You're going to have to wait, though. You're going to have to wait. Tomorrow, we are joined by Brandon Tatum, live in person at the Black Eyed Pea, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It is going to be a ton of fun. Believe me. So much fun. Ask my mom. I know how to throw a party. I know how to throw too big of a party.
Really big.
And that skill came into benefit for the Western Conservative Summit and will be on display tomorrow. We're going to have lawmakers joining us. Lisa Frizzell in the 6 a.m. hour. She's the state rep that represents Castle Rock. She heard about it, texted me and said, can I swing by? I said, of course, come on over. So you got elected officials in the 7 o'clock hour. Jeff Crank running for Congress in Congressional District 5. Very competitive seat against Dave Williams for that primary nod. He'll be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. And then Brandon Tatum. From then on, it is going to be a ton of fun. So 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And you add in all those great personalities, all the fun, all the lively conversations with the most important thing. Every youth pastor knows this. Food.
Yeah, food.
Good food makes all the difference.
And I'm going to be wearing like actual pants and stuff too, because you only see me like waist up here. So, I'm going to have to like do the whole shebang here. This is going to be interesting. They're. In fact, I checked with our general manager yesterday, and he said, yes, legal has gotten through all the paperwork, so they can release me into public. So, so we have been
You're going to wear one of those dog suits.
I need
the
one of those.
SWAT training dog suits.
Yeah, but I hope everyone comes on out. And again, I will play along with you. I understand that, like I'm the independent voice, the unaffiliated here. I'm the interloper somewhat on the station. And I respect that. And I appreciate each and every one of you accepting me. And I also appreciate some of you wanting to reject me. But I get it. I understand. But please come on up. Dislike, take a picture with me. We will have fun. I guarantee that I will make it worth your while. If you want to step up, you want to do something silly with me, let's do it. I'm more than happy to play along. You want to show people what you really think about me. Let's do this. Yeah.
So the person who won in the 7 o'clock hour
is Joan from Lakewood, our oftentimes caller. She has been dialing her fingers off all week in order to get it. So Joan
won in the 8 o'clock hour, but in the 7 o'clock hour was Hugo.
Yes, Hugo.
And Hugo has very strong opinions about Bill.
Yes,
he does. I think he's going to be there tomorrow.
Oh, I can't wait to take a picture with him. I cannot wait. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But I appreciate each and every one of you playing along and hitting the phones when you do it. And we got another gift certificate. This is the last one that is coming up later this hour, so don't miss.
Wow, bro, we just got a really powerful text message.
Oh,
so we were talking about the Columbine shooting. I'm going to keep some of their privacy here. Jeff and Bill, having lived through a school shooting as a family, my son was at the STEM shooting. We understand the range of emotions people experience. Like all of these, there's so much more that reaches the general public, so much more than what reaches the general public.
Yeah, that's true.
It makes you realize how deep and complex these issues are. Guns are the simple, fast focus, but it's always more. Somebody actually involved. Wow.
Yeah, that is really powerful.
Wow.
I appreciate you opening up and sharing with that. And I believe that that the texter and that you're right as well, Jeff, that the gun in this instance is a tool of violence and a tool of evil. And I go back to something I was saying last hour. Not certain that we're willing to fix that yet. Not certain that we want to. I'm not convinced yet, but that's a conversation for a different day.
All right. So coming up just after the news, our friend of the program, Erin Lee, she's the mother that was featured in the Art Club movie documentary, which was about how her daughter went to an art club meeting just at their school and came back really believing in a lot of the transgender ideology, even questioning her own gender just from attending one meeting at a school. And then her fight to try to protect parental rights and all this. She has a documentary out called the Art Club movie. Well, they tried to screen it at DU this last week, and a lot of protesters showed up chanting, "Trans rights are human rights. Shame on you." Are these students missing the point? We're going to get the details on what that was like from Erin Lee in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. Yeah, that's interesting. Looking forward to that. 33 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the mid 50s, 40s, that is, today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a big decision expected today in the Colorado funeral home case. The couple accused of leaving 190 bodies to rot in their building in Penrose will be back in court this morning. Their trial starts in October, but will a judge release them until then? That occurs today.
I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli. My mother's Israeli. I have family there. And honestly, we're in pain. Our community was attacked.
The rise in anti-Semitism on the Columbia campus in New York is disgusting to clear-minded people. Last night, near riots, and this morning, on and off the campus, plenty of problems. Police have tried to control things there. President Biden does not want Israel to go into Rafah or Haifa, wherever that is.
And I made it clear to Israelis, don't move on Haifa. It's just not, I mean, anyway, I just, look what we did recently when Israel was attacked.
More than a dozen employees have been reportedly fired from the very, very lefty leaning Google. They don't like that Google is doing something with the Israeli government, so they've defaced property, physically impeded the work of others, wore ugly T-shirts, and took over the offices.
What would you say you do here?
Well, the White House praising the U.S. Senate for dismissing 2 articles of impeachment against the guy who is supposed to close our borders, Alejandro Mayorkas. The state's first Firehawk helicopter is nearly ready to launch. It arrived 2 years ago and then delayed, but will be running in May. On the 10th, Governor Polis used it as a backdrop on Wednesday to present this year's wildfire preparedness plan. Activity is expected to be normal this season, hopefully. We typically see 5,500 wildfires during the spring, summer, and fall. The Firehawk can fly in some of the worst wind conditions. 19-year-old Javon Perez arrested after Denver police say that he shot at officers and a coroner's investigator last May. You may remember this story. The coroner was followed by him as she returned to the office. She called police. They were waiting, and that's where shots were fired. Wow. 30 in Littleton, 31 in Aurora, 33 in Denver. And just in case you were gearing up for more coverage of the Trump trial in New York, Steven Crowder hits it.
I tell you, that's the worst hush money I ever spent. Usually when you spend hush money, they hush.
I think that is
That's
phenomenal. It's Thursday with Jeff and Bill. The 9 o'clock hour continues. Blake Olson News Talk 710 KNUS. Don't forget tomorrow at Castle Rock.
Are you coming?
The 7-10 5-day forecast calls for
Man, I want
a lot. Front range as we go through the next 3 days. Partly to mostly cloudy and cold. Few isolated snow or rain showers. Highs low to mid 40s. Snow showers low to mid 30s tonight.
Yes,
He's like Radio Free Europe. He's on a boat somewhere off. Yeah.
I'm in the bunker with Levin.
All right,
guys.
Early Saturday.
Oh, you too, my friend. Take care.
Sunday.
Oh.
Meteorologist on day on 710 KNUS.
All right, my favorite leftist rage blog here in Colorado, one of my favorites. There's a whole bunch of them out there, masquerading as a newspaper, but really just angry leftists on their keyboards. Meh. Typing Colorado Times Recorder wrote this. Trans rights are human rights. University of Denver students protest anti-trans film. Really? Anti-trans film?
I like the fact that you highlighted the Colorado Times Recorder. I appreciate them as an outlet, and I do. I do. And here's why.
I'm so angry.
The thing for me is I appreciate it because I like hearing and reading their perspective, and I also find the writing very emotional, and they do a good job of weaving the story into emotion along with facts. It's not, again, I don't always agree with what's there, but it's, I sit there and I'm like, I appreciate that they have that voice. I know. I just appreciate they have the voice because I feel it allows me to hear what they think and say on that very far left side.
Let me tell you who writes at the Colorado Times Recorder. These, just imagine in your mind somebody with a laptop at Starbucks, and the sticker on their laptop is "Down with Capitalism," and they're typing on an Apple laptop with a Starbucks macchiato next to them, listening to their iPods or iPhone ear things, whatever those are, and then typing very angrily into their blog about things going on in the state.
Dude,
that's who writes for the Colorado Times Recorder.
You forgot the Che Guevara t-shirt.
Yes, there you go. All right,
you have to. It's when you sign up and you work for the Colorado Times Recorder, they hand you that's part of the welcome package. Here's your Che Guevara t-shirt.
Yes. Is Jason Salzman still in charge of this thing?
Yeah.
All right, Jason, you got to send us some Colorado Times Recorder shirts. I know you guys listen to the show because we get written all the time in it.
If he's got a Colorado Times Recorder shirt, I'd wear that. I got I mean, you send me free stuff, I'll wear your free stuff.
There you go.
I have a very low bar on what goes on my body. Unfortunately, my wife complains about that all the time.
All right, let's get into the actual meat of this article.
That probably would help.
And I'll use my best angry liberal at a coffee shop.
All right.
Children should feel safe to tell their parents they're gay. A masked protester shouted on Wednesday during a screening of Art Club, produced by anti-trans activist Erin Lee and former Colorado lawmaker Kevin Lumberg. The auditorium seated about 40 students, many of whom were holding protest signs, waving pride flags, and demanding accessibility to be taken into account. When told their 80-minute film would have no closed captions. I'm so angry. Outside of the room, close to 100 students chanted "Trans rights are human rights" and "Shame on you." So if you want to see what they're talking all about, go to artclubmovie.com, artclubmovie.com to actually watch the documentary, which I've seen multiple times. And it's a perfectly fine movie about a family trying to navigate what happened when their daughter went to an art club meeting and came back going, I might be in the wrong body, and how parents navigated that, protected their child, protected parental rights. It's a perfectly fine film, but the students at DU were not happy about it. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill is Erin Lee, the star of the Art Club movie. You were there at this protest, at this screening. Erin, thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's a pleasant surprise that there's not 100 people chanting over me on this interview.
Well, give us a few minutes or so and we can try. Yeah,
we'll get a few text messages here. So let's describe, first of all, what the scene was like. You're partnering with Turning Point. You've done screenings in lots of places. You're doing screenings at churches all over the state of Colorado. Focus on the Family has talked about your documentary. You did a screening at CCU, and then you show up for this screening. How was this different?
Yeah, so I had heard in advance that there was a petition being circulated to silence us. And when I looked at it, it was a lot of staff. There was legislators. Representative Woodrow signed on to silence us.
Oh, come on, Woody. Woody's feelings were hurt. I'm so angry.
So we knew there was opposition. We knew that Parasol Patrol and Antifa were involved. But I don't think I could have anticipated what we walked into. I mean, we could not get a word in edgewise. There was not a minute that there was not chanting, banging, screaming, cussing going on. We truly did not have 1 minute of free speech take place.
Were you able to show the film at all?
We did. And there was actually about 60 people in the room, not 40, and not surprised CTR didn't get their facts right. But the people in the room were, again, banging, screaming, playing music from their little boombox. So we played it, but we played it under, the noise of these protesters. And the protesters in the hallway were just obnoxiously loud. There was also protesters outside the window to the building that were chanting, protect trans kids and trans rights or human rights. To which none of them could even express to me what that meant, what rights are being impeded. But so we showed the film, we showed all 84 minutes, but unfortunately there was not a moment of it that was not, kind of shrouded out by the protesters.
How did the conservative students at DU feel about this? I mean, you didn't just show up, you partnered with Turning Point USA, a conservative club on campus. Did they stand with you all?
They did, and I just feel awful for the young man named Max who runs the Turning Point USA chapter at DU. He was beside himself. I don't think he could have anticipated this kind of protest. I mean, they were coming after him. They were chanting his name. When he went out into the hallway, he felt physically threatened. I'm told that he didn't have the energy to even go to class the next day. It was just so daunting for him. I'm used to it. I've gone to school board meetings here in the Poudre School District where Antifa has shown up, and it got loud and violent, and the police would not come and protect the people in the crowd who were being attacked. But I don't think anything could have prepared this young man for this kind of backlash.
Now, Erin Lee,
pretty shaken.
You're the mom that's featured in this film. You are not a rock-ribbed conservative from birth. This is not a mission that you've been on for a long time. But tell people what happened to your daughter. What kind of woke you up to all this?
I think that's one thing that makes it so ironic. What happened on Wednesday is that I've always been pretty centrist, really. I mean, I've always been a registered unaffiliated. We were not really religious prior to this happening to our family. But our story started in 2021. Our daughter was invited, as you said, to an art club that was actually gender and sexuality awareness. And the teacher brought in these radical outside activists. One that runs an organization for kids called Skittles that starts at age 2. The other, a self-proclaimed genderqueer shape-shifting blood witch. And the school district did this behind our back intentionally. They call it a confidential session. And one of the rules is what you hear in here, keep in here. And they emphasize that your parents might not be safe. You don't need to tell them about what happened. And, our daughter was 12. She just started puberty. It was COVID. We had just moved. She was so vulnerable and impressionable. And in that 90-minute meeting, they truly captured her with gender ideology and led her to believe that her normal discomfort in her body means she's transgender. And that led to about 9 months of deep, dark confusion for her. And, therapy in the state of Colorado made it worse because therapists have to oblige whatever the child says. If they're trans, they must go along with it. And it was hard for us to get her out of it. But once we did, the reason we've become so vocal is that she asked us to protect other girls from going through what she had. Once she kind of stepped back and we actually watched What is a Woman, and she looked at the situation and went, wow, how did that happen to me? And how do I protect other little girls from being captured the way I was? And so we're only vocal, and we only did the movie, and we actually feature her in it. She's able to tell her story at the end of it because she asked us to be, because she's so concerned about the social contagion of transgenderism and the rate of kids who are identifying this way and how it just wreaks havoc on their lives and on all the people around them. We don't talk a lot about the families and the siblings and the other peers that are caught up in the web, but it affects everyone.
Now,
not just the child.
We're talking with Erin Lee. She's the mom featured in the movie Art Club. You can watch it at artclubmovie.com. The response from the LGBT community is that, Erin, you are not allowing your daughter to live out her truth. You are getting in the way and interfering with her. And as a result, you're being oppressive. What's your response to that critique?
Isn't that ironic that they know more about my family, whom they've never met, than I do about my own child? I got this question the other night, and we did take a Q&A through all the screaming and hissing and harassment, we did do a Q&A after the movie before the provost shut it down early. And, we got that question, why are you getting into the lives of other people's families? And I said, unlike you, I stand for parental rights, and it's legal to transition your kid. And if a parent believes their child is transgender, who am I to get in the way and say you're not allowed to do that with your own child? But I ask for the same respect. I'm the parent, and I know my child. Her brain is not fully developed, and I've been with her for 12 years. So I know her better than anyone, and this was the right path for my family. This transgender label was not fitting for her. And so we did what was best for our child in that situation. And thank God we did, because as I said, she fell into a dark cloud, and she became, it was actually the transgender identity that made her so depressed she became suicidal. Parents are pushed this suicide myth that you must affirm. Do you want a living transgender son or a dead daughter? And we were bullied and gaslit in the same way, but we trusted our instinct that that was not right for our daughter. And we watched her spiral into this dark hole as she was trying to make the transgender label fit. And it was only when we gave her that off ramp that you don't have to do this. Are you sure you're trans? And she was relieved, like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do this anymore. And I have a great testimony of that. We did a summit with Colorado Parent Advocacy Network last weekend. Chloe Cole was there. And a young girl approached me about 15 years old, and she said, your movie really touched me, and I don't want to be trans anymore. And I've come out at home as myself. I'm me again, but do you have any advice for how I can come out as not transgender to my friends at school? Because I know I'll be bullied, and some of them won't want to be my friend anymore. And that's the situation that so many of these young kids have found themselves in. They're in this rabbit hole, and they don't know how to get out. And it really speaks to, the social contagion that is gender ideology.
Right. Abigail Schreier's written about this in a book, and she's a former Wall Street Journal reporter. Yeah, I've watched your social media posts, and you have now found yourself as kind of a target in what I would just describe as a political movement. That this isn't about dialogue. This isn't about conversation on best policies, best parenting practices. What is transgenderism? What's the difference between biological sex and gender identity? All that stuff. You're not part of conversations. You're now in the pathway of a political operation. And so they're attacking you to try to move you out of the way so they can advance a political agenda. And that's what it seems like with these students and the amount of protests you dealt with at DU. Talk to us about that experience that you're facing there.
Yeah, there's definitely a concerted effort to label the topic of transgenderism as controversial. Like a lot of the students who were there Wednesday, for example, they didn't know why they were there. It was a lot of young girls who were just there to, do whatever the next big thing is. In this case, it was, protesting a transphobe, as they say, or, the Colorado Times Reporter article that you referenced. I've had a lot of articles come out, that within the subject is anti-LGBTQ activists. And so there's this concerted effort to stigmatize the topic and make it controversial so that no productive conversation can take place. Really, they're aiming to silence any dissenters. I've even been canceled as a Lincoln Day dinner speaker at a Republican event for being, quote, controversial. So those are people who've capitulated to this mentality that if you talk about transgenderism, it's controversial, so we just don't talk about it. And it's really just an effort to silence people like me who point out science and facts and biological truth and, our personal stories of what we've been through that contradict the narrative around transgenderism, that it's inherent, get to choose your gender, and if you're transgender, it's absolute, you cannot go back on it.
Talking with Erin Lee, she's the mom featured in the documentary Art Club Movie. You can watch it at artclubmovie.com. What's your message to parents whose kids may be exploring transgenderism?
I always say, first and foremost, trust your instinct. Don't let, the world, like I said, the gaslighting and the lies sway what you know to be true. My motto is be the lighthouse. That, when the world is hitching their anchor to your kid and they're going through choppy waters, you don't also hitch your anchor. You guide your light and help them through it. And you just have to stay grounded in truth. even though the world will tell you that you must affirm or they'll kill themselves. We know that to not be true based on our personal experience and thousands of other parents that I've talked to. So first and foremost, trust your instinct. But I also caution parents, be careful with internet access. I regret that my daughter had a cell phone and she was able to fall deeper into this ideology after art club. I don't think kids should have a phone and unfettered internet access at an early age. And don't be afraid to cut off other bad influences. In our case, we cut off friendships, and that was hard. It was we had a preteen girl, and she hated us for it. But now she's grateful, and she understands that there were some really bad influences that were making her worse. And we had to be brave and dig deep and cut them off in order to really save her from what could have ultimately taken her life.
Now, Erin, I've got a question for you based on some of the conversation we had here. Is it your personal belief that everyone that is transgendered is making this a choice, or is some of this innate and some people are choosing? What's your opinion?
I think gender dysphoria is a very real mental condition. I mean, it's historically been gender identity disorder is what we used to call it. It's something that people have struggled with. Now, I am someone who's grounded in biological truth. I don't believe you can change your sex. I know that it's in every fiber of your DNA. You're either XX or XY, but I don't invalidate people's experience struggling with gender identity. If you're an adult, you're able to make your own decisions on how you want to live your life. But I absolutely don't believe that anyone has any business exposing kids to the idea of gender ideology, because as I said, it's a social contagion and it's very easy for kids to fall into it. Now, that's not to invalidate the people who genuinely struggle with gender dysphoria, but it's a mental condition.
Well, but didn't we at one time think that homosexuality was a mental condition as well?
Sure,
Okay.
but homosexuality, like I said, is not in every fiber of your DNA, whereas your sex is.
Yeah, but sex and gender are different, though. That's okay. I mean, I understand, but that we once upon a time we said that that being homosexual was a mental condition, and we changed that. So could we also be incorrect on this idea of transgenderism being a mental disorder? Could we make the same mistake?
No, absolutely
Why
not.
not?
Gender was a term that was first coined by a known child sex abuser, John Money. So the term gender itself, I disagree with. I
Gender,
prefer to use
but
the
with
term sex.
respect to the gender and the idea of gender identity has gone back hundreds and hundreds of years. I understand going back to that one instance, but we can find in Old English, we can find German, Italy, all sorts of things talking about gender. So the idea that it's just invented, completely and totally disagree. That's not correct. And the idea being, I mean, you talked about the science. We do have XX and XY, but we do have XXY, and we have other extraneous chromosomes. So it is not biologically just defined as the two pairs of chromosomes.
Bill, do you think that there's a social contagion element to this, though? Do you think that kids going through natural body changes are getting caught up in the idea that they might be trans when they're not?
Yep, absolutely. And I think that Erin is the perfect example of this, because what it was is it was an art club that really was messaging for transgender. And for me, that's disgusting. That is absolutely ridiculous. Also, talking about it at such a young age is also, I believe, inappropriate, just based on you need to let these people become who they feel they are. If the person, and I believe that it is genetic, if they are transgender, then I believe that will become apparent. And it will be as you transform through puberty. That will become apparent, and we can make that choice then. But I completely and totally agree with Erin that this type of a club is way out of bounds, way out of the purview of the school. And the fact that they covered it up as an art class shows me how devious and duplicitous they were on their face. They were 110% wrong. In fact, if you put me in charge of that school, I would consider firing those teachers. That's how serious I take this based on what they did. But the other side, I will defend the idea that, yes, I think transgender is biological, because I can't imagine anyone, given how they're treated, would make that choice.
But I don't think anyone makes the choice to be schizophrenic either, or make a choice to be, anorexic. I think those are, again, mental conditions that affect our physical self.
Yeah. We also don't choose to be homosexual or heterosexual as well. So that identity could be there too.
I have a hard time when those two issues get conflated,
Yeah,
homosexuality and transgenderism. They're two very different things. And you brought up, kids should be allowed to, the quote, kids should be allowed to tell their parents they're gay. You will never hear me in any interview ever saying anything negative against the LGBT community. In fact, I believe transgenderism is a form of conversion therapy of gay kids in a lot of cases. And I have a lot of LGBT friends who believe the same. That in a lot of these cases, effeminate boys or masculine girls are probably just going to be gay if you leave them alone. But it's cruel to approach them at that young age and tell them that these qualities, these personality traits, mean they might be born in the wrong body or they might actually be the opposite sex. In my opinion, transgenderism, this ideology being pushed on kids, is very much a form of conversion therapy of LGBT kids.
How do you deal with those people though that tell you, I look in the mirror and I want to see a woman, but I see a man's body. I want to see a man's body, but I'm in a woman's body. Everything about me says man or woman, the opposite gender of which I am. And that's what I see in the mirror. And that's the struggle that they have every day. I mean, how do you deal with that?
I have great empathy for people who are going through that, especially because as I've been, tackling this issue for 3 years, and for the record, I didn't choose this issue. It happened to us. Never in a million years did I think that this would be the thing that I would be, on a radio show talking about. But what I've learned is that majority of people who are trans identified are not happier as a result of it. I know they're seeking for validation and for happiness. And most times there's this dark cloud that covers them because you can't change your sex. You can't be the opposite sex. And so I have great empathy for what they're going through. And I always emphasize the need for mental health support for people in that situation, because of course I want them to be happy and fulfilled and validated. But I have yet to meet a transgender person who is happy and fulfilled as a result of that identification.
Yeah. And the question I would have in the conversation there is there unhappiness based on the choice? Or is there unhappiness based on how the society is treating them? How people turn around and tell them, no, you're not. I'm not gonna respond to you this way. I'm gonna tell you that you're sick, that this is a mental illness. This is not who you are. Is that possibly the dark cloud that hangs over them instead of the choice?
I can't put myself in each of their shoes, but I can tell you based on my personal experience with all the young people that I've worked with, it's not how the world is treating them. It's trying to fit a square peg into a circular hole. And it just is impossible.
I respect that, but everyone that I know that is on the side of that has gone through the transition, and even in the LGBTQ community, feels the exact opposite way. Feels that it is the pressure of society that is telling them they aren't good enough. It is a transgendered person that knows that if it is late at night in downtown Denver and they're walking out of a bar, they might be the victim of violence simply because of how they are dressed and how they're presenting themselves. That those things, that they can walk into a store and they can be yelled at and ridiculed based on how they're trying to present themselves. And that's the dark cloud that I hear from the people that I know in the community. That's the pressure,
Erin
not
Lee,
the choice.
I'll give you the final word. Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, is that really happening, or is that what society has told them, that they're a victim? And
Well, it's what society is doing to them. I mean, regardless.
I could argue that I should have the same fear that if I'm walking near Denver University, someone could come out and attack me. They tried. And so it's not one size fits all, but last word is just, I hope people will watch the film and hear our story for themselves. I think they'll find that it's not as controversial as it's made out to be. And, I'm definitely someone who is open to productive conversation. I welcome opposing views, like we've had here today. And I think that's the only way we move forward, is if both sides are able to have productive civil conversation about the issue, rather than continuing to make this a controversial topic that can't be talked about.
Oh, thank you so much. And I got to tell you, the way that you were treated at D is absolutely abhorrent. I would be standing right next to you and telling each and every one of those protesters outside to get a clue. And maybe, just maybe, when you're trying to grow up and be adults, damn it, act like one. And don't sit here and be an asshat. Let the movie go. Everything's going to be fine. Get over it.
Erin Lee, the mom featured in the movie Art Club Movie. You can watch that at artclubmovie.com. That's artclubmovie.com. They tried to do a screening at DU recently and met by a lot of protesters, including a petition signed by Woody Woodrow down at the state capitol. So appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Bill. That was a good one. I think that's why Westward loves the show. Thanks, Erin. Appreciate you being on the Jeff and Bill show. All right. We will continue with phone calls and text. A lot of text messages coming in on this one. Let us know what you think about this. I mean, Bill, I appreciate you willing to stand with Erin, even though you disagree with her, but her treatment at DU, you don't agree with.
No, that's ridiculous.
Which,
those people are jerks.
Appreciate.
And the fact that they went after the student there that organized the event, I'm sorry, act like adults. Understand that you don't have to agree or force everybody to agree with you. I have a different opinion in some places than Erin does. We can still be friends. We can still talk about it. But I'm not going to yell at her. I'm not going to shout her down. And there are things I agree with her on. If we sit there and talk about it, we can find the commonalities. And I completely and totally disagree with the behavior of the people that protested when they were doing the movie. 110%. Stop it. Grow up.
There you go. Last word goes to Bill. Guys, generally we talk about medicine and effective treatments for erectile dysfunction and other men's sexual health issues. Today, I want to talk to you about love. The one you love is the light of your life. And if you're like most men, you want to do whatever you can to nurture your relationship. But if you're suffering with ED, you know the impacts the condition is likely having on you and on your partner. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic has served the Front Range of Colorado for nearly a decade and has successfully treated tens of thousands of men. Schedule a consult with Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic today. Your initial visit is only $99 and includes a medical consult with a licensed medical provider, AT and PSA test, and if medically advised, a test dose. And if the test dose doesn't work in the office, your visit is free. They have 5 locations in Colorado: Fort Collins, North Denver, Central Denver, Castle Rock, and Colorado Springs. Stop dealing with the lack of confidence that ED brings. Give them a call today, 720-440-7900. That's 720-440-7900, or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com, RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts, and coming up next, maybe a giveaway. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Wheat farmers in America are facing bleak crop economics as grain oversupply keeps prices at their lowest in nearly 4 years. Haley Bianco reports.
Profit is growing further out of reach for U.S. wheat farmers, and many do not expect to break even in 2024 as ample global supply keeps prices low and costs for equipment and transport remain high. The current state of the U.S. wheat market will hit winter wheat farmers in the Great Plains hard. However, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said this week that 55% of the crop is in good to excellent condition, marking the highest for this time of year since 2020. The U.S. is the world's 5th largest wheat exporter.
Widespread outages to 911 call services have been reported overnight in at least 4 states. Police in South Dakota reported the entire statewide emergency calling system went down Wednesday evening, with authorities in Rapid City posting online alternate numbers for emergency calls. Nevada State Police also reported problems, advising people to call 911 from a cell phone so a dispatcher could return the call. Several towns in Texas and Nebraska also reported issues. There's no word yet on the cause. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
All right, it's that time on the Jeff and Bill. And the 303-696-1971 wins a $50 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea restaurants, proudly serving delicious home-style cooking with 8 Colorado locations online at blackeyedpeacolorado.com. And don't forget to join us tomorrow, Friday, for breakfast with Jeff and Bill, along with the very special guest, 710 KNUS afternoon host, Brandon Tatum. It's a live broadcast tomorrow morning at the Black Eyed Pea location in Castle Rock. You can get all the details at 710knus.com. For the best home-cooked meal away from home, it's the Black Eyed Pea. Give us a call. Caller number 10 at 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. What do you think of that conversation with Erin Lee? You think the DU students treated her very well? Bill disagrees with her on the policy, agrees with her that she shouldn't have been treated so poorly at DU. That was disappointing, and I agree with Bill on that one. Look, Jeff Hunt here for my friends at Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests that you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer. Dan is also a former seminarian. Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases for a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If I was ever in trouble, Dan would be my first call. Give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S, law.com. Let's go to Kathy in Aurora. Kathy, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning. And first, bummer, I was on hold, so I couldn't call in for the gift certificate.
Well, hopefully we can still see you tomorrow. But what's up on your mind, Kathy?
Well, I find a couple of things interesting. One being that all of the transgender people that I've heard about, listened to, don't know any personals, but they change their gender and they go through the surgeries. And if a man becomes a woman, he still wants to date women. A woman becomes a man, she still wants to date men, or he still wants to date men.
Sure,
so
gets complicated, doesn't it?
They're actually, they may be transgender, but they're also homosexual because they want to date the same sex person. So I find that interesting.
Look, adults, that's one choice. What do you think of kids being exposed to this type of stuff?
I think it's horrible. There was a family that I think was on a Stefan show a couple of years ago, and their family had gone through some stuff because they had a little boy and then they had a little girl that had a lot of medical issues, and she was getting a lot of attention. At some point, as this went on, I don't know, he was 6 or 8 years old, and he said he wanted to be a girl, and they went through a lot of stuff thinking he wanted to be a girl. What they found out was he wanted the attention his sister was getting.
Interesting. Well,
so it's
no, I mean, it's big life change stuff that's being exposed to kids. And Kathy, I will tell you, I was down at a lot of these fights down at the state capitol, and the trans activists, those that are the actual political activists, see parents as a threat and try to move them out of the equation. And I think that's just wrong. Kathy, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Look, there's a lot to consider when it comes to higher education. The college experience can either build a student's faith up with knowledge and understanding or tear it down. At Colorado Christian University, they aim to strengthen their students' Christian faith because they believe that everything depends on it. CCU's academic and student development programs cultivate a deep and enduring faith that affirms the authority of Scripture and embraces Christ as the authentic center of life. What does this look like week to week at CCU? Well, all students are placed in a discipleship group freshman year. Their campus ministries department creates space for spiritual formation through weekly chapels, service opportunities, and international missions. And every student graduates with an emphasis in biblical studies taught by expert faculty in their field, Old and New Testament, theology, and church history. At CCU, they consider faith the most important thing a student can take with them into their future career. To learn more and apply, go to ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Congratulations to Trent and Aurora for winning the $50 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea restaurants. Tomorrow, we are live in person. Bill and I, along with Brandon Tatum, down at the Black Eyed Pea in Castle Rock, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. All details at 710 KNUS. Don't miss it. We'd love to see you in person. Even if you don't like me or you don't like Bill, come on down. We'll have some fun. That's the whole point of the show. There's not enough right, left, independent thinking happening anymore.
Yeah, not at all. It's just like the last conversation we have with Erin that I disagree with some things on her, but I would be standing right next to her yelling at those protesters because I think that her voice needs to be heard, and I agree with her about the premise that she has with the schools and the classes. Absolutely. So this is why we're different than anybody else. And come on out tomorrow, and we'll show you how different we are. I'm very interactive if you want to be, as far as when we're in the breaks. So you want to take some pictures? You want to get that picture? Look what I did to the dum-dum on the air. Come and take a picture with me. We'll be more than happy to have fun with you.
It'll be great. Hey, imagine effortlessly gliding open your cabinets and drawers to reveal neatly arranged shelves that showcase your belongings. With roll 'em out shelves, you'll easily access your pots, pans, and other essentials, eliminating all the chaos and increasing speed and functionality in your home. They've come out to our house. We're so excited to get these installed. Roll 'em out shelves understands that every home storage needs are unique. Whether you're dealing with tight corners or expansive cabinets, your shelves will be custom built to maximize every inch of available space. Begin the affordable transformation in your home for less than $1,000 when Roll 'em Out Shelves efficiently organizes your space with sturdy Baltic birch shelves built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. Call for your free in-home estimate today, 303-475-9601 or rollemoutshelves.com. Be sure to tell them Jeff sent you, 303-475-9601, rollemoutshelves.com. All right, tomorrow, Brandon Tatum live in person. All details at 710 KNUS. Up next is Charlie Kirk. The great mission of conservative and independent thinking continues on 710 KNUS. Thanks for listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We will see you tomorrow. They're letting us out in public. This is so questionable. 710 KNUS.